At the next moment, the 5-element bead sends out a faint halo under the impetus of mana, and Tian drives Dun Tiansuo to fly down. According to the Jade Slips, Hun Yuan is not easy to capture. It needs a very fast speed. Now the fastest one around him is Dun Tiansuo. It doesn't take much time. With the blessing of the 5-element beads, Dun Tiansuo has already run 100 miles away. At the moment when the Soul Yuan enters the area covered by the 5-element beads, Tian sends out a cloud camera. As soon as the cloud photographer wanted to catch the dim light, the light suddenly flashed, as if in a blink. When he was more than 10 feet away, he didn't move. There's something about it. On Dun Tiansuo, Tian stops inputting the mana in the 5-element beads, touches his chin, stares at the white light and begins to ponder. Sure enough, it's not easy to capture. It's not only fast, but also has the power of blinking. If all the soul elements are so difficult to capture, I'm afraid those Jindanjing monks sent by the sect will return without success, and there will be no sense of fighting for Tsangming order. It seems that this Soul Yuan is not ordinary. Tian easily made this judgment. It seems that this Hun Yuan is a big Hun Yuan. The next moment, Tian gesture move, the hand appeared the seal magic weapon, after the sacrifice, instantly enlarged. Then he made a move and rushed to the dim light again. The light seemed to struggle for a few times, but it didn't break away from the shackles of the gravity field, and was quickly grasped by Tian. Originally, Tian thought that the essence of the soul was illusory, but he had a feeling of flesh in his hand, as if he had grasped Tai Sui's flesh. It's bigger than the blue flag. It weighs about 4 or 5 jin. It has no nose and eyes. It's like a piece of meat that can move. Under the light of Tian's eye, there is nothing special. It's all made of the same material from inside to outside. Put away the magic weapon seal, Tian returns to the ground and sits on the ground with his knees crossed. Tian begins to fiddle with it. At this time, the Soul Yuan can move normally. He moves left and right in Tian's hand, as if he wants to break away from Tian's palm. Tai Sui, do you know this kind of thing? It looks like you're kindred? There are too many things in the universe that Tian has not touched, including this shining meat. He has no choice but to call Tai Sui again. With that, Tian was waiting for Tai Sui's reply, but Tai Sui seemed to be asleep, and there was no movement. Tai Sui. Tian called again. I'm looking. Where did this come from? Tai Sui has finally spoken. Your voice seems to be thinking and speaking at the same time. It's underground. I told you about Hun Yuan before, don't you think? Tian is a little surprised. He looks too old to be sure. In his ear, Tai Sui's voice came immediately, what is Hun Yuan? I don't know. As I said, all kinds of things in the universe are named. But I guess something like this. It's just that it shouldn't be here. Even if it's a guess, tell me about it. Tian urges away. I have been living since ancient times. How can I say anything I guess? How damaging is my glorious image? Try to stick it with the best fairy jade. Tai Sui said with disdain. When Tian heard the speech, he was very happy. Since Tai Sui said so, he had a spectrum in his heart, just to confirm it. Although the best fairy jade is precious, he will not be stingy at this time. With a gesture, a piece of crystal clear and rich aura of the best fairy jade has appeared in his hand. The next moment, Tian has pasted the best fairy jade on the meat. Hiss. With a light sound, the jade turned into a gray color, and the rich aura power inside was absorbed by it. Tian looked at the white light ball in his hand again, as if nothing had changed. By the way, that's what I know. I have to say that you really have the chance to go against the sky. You are the owner of the first chance I have seen since ancient times. No, you are the one who has the most chance to go against the sky. Tai Sui kept on saying, this kind of thing really shouldn't appear here. It's called Lingzhen. As for its use, don't jump up after you've heard it. Say it. Tian's heart moves. What Tai Sui can say must be extraordinary, and from the fact that it absorbs the aura of the best fairy jade, it's really extraordinary. Taisui's voice came out again. Why do I want you to have a try? Because at first glance, this thing is indeed the same as Lingzhen, but as far as I know, there is no such big Lingzhen. It may be caused by swallowing up too many small spiritual roots. The first function of Lingzhen is to replenish the soul. It can nourish the soul with this material. It can complete the soul of the remnant body, and it can also strengthen the weak soul. The second effect is even more adverse, that is, it can refine and divide the soul. After refining the soul, you can refine the outer body. If you don't know what the avatar is, I'll tell you. It's equivalent to having two you, it's equivalent to having two lives. When you want to split, you can split. When you want to join, you can make peace. However, not everyone has the conditions to refine the external separation. It needs a strong soul and a soul with enough vitality. That is to say, the soul that has experienced too many years cannot refine the external separation. Otherwise, the soul will be divided into two parts and lack of vitality, which will easily lead to accidents. Haha, don't look at me with this kind of eyes. What I'm talking about is the fact that there was a very strong monk named Heidi, who had refined his incarnation. It's a long time ago. How to cultivate and use this spiritual root? Where are you? You want me to see you? I'm just looking at Lingzhen. He only knows the best fairy jade. If he has milk, he is the mother's master. He can find some spiritual soil, the best is spiritual soil. If he has spiritual material, it's the best. He likes to absorb the fragrance of spiritual material. The better it is, the more effective it is. Taisui said. This condition. Yi Tian's face moved. He held a magic weapon cave in his palm. He magnified it on the white bones on the ground, opened the door and stepped into it. Taisui, how is it here? Yes, it seems that it's tailor-made for Lingzhen. So you've been ready for a long time? Taisui praised twice. In this magic weapon cave medicine garden, all kinds of spiritual materials are luxuriant and full of aura. The 7-color spiritual soil is shining with crystal light, and the fragrance of herbs is refreshing. But at this time, the spirit root in Yi Tian's hand is suddenly struggling. Yi Tiancheng is afraid that he will run away, and holds it tightly. Well, you can let it go. This kind of thing loves home most. After staying in a place for a long time, even if it's broken in the end, it won't take the initiative to leave unless it's taken away. Just like the underground before, there must be a lot of aura, which gives him a lot of nourishment, so he doesn't want to leave. Taisui said. Yi Tian nodded. He did find some debris similar to Xianyu in the soil. Maybe because he was too old, it had been weathered, just like an ordinary stone. He hit the gate of the cave with a magic power and reopened the prohibition. Then, with a loose finger, Lingzhen went to the distance with a whoosh. He wandered among Linkai flowers and trees, like the lantern in Liuzhai. Looking at this thing, Yi Tiankai didn't mean to find it out and escape. He took out more than 10 pieces of the best fairy jade from Zumaji and threw them in the medicine garden. Cough. The host is really rich. Taisui made a few dry smiles. Haha, a little money. I'm too old. If you need anything, just ask Yi Tian said with a smile. I want to sleep. With that, there was a long snore in Yi Tian's ears. Yi Tian shakes his head with a smile, goes out of the cave, closes the door, and takes the magic weapon cave medicine garden away. He opens his mind and looks at it. Then he took out the fierce flying sword, stepped on it, and fled in the direction of Tsangming order. If Yi Tian wants to cross the desert on foot without magic power, he will be in despair. However, it is not so far away to control the fierce sword. Before long, he had successfully flew out of the desert, and took back 8 ghost puppets in the vicinity of thousands of miles. Then, he steered Dun Tiansua and flew to another puppet. In the desert, the fierce flying sword can be used, but Dun Tiansua can't. At this time, it doesn't consume mana, so Yi Tian is happy to use Dun Tiansua. Flying out of the distance of 300 or 400 li, Yi Tian suddenly stopped Dun Tiansua. Within the scope of the divine idea, the overwhelming white bones and skeletons are coming here. How many white bones and skeletons did the underworld people secretly transport to Tsangming Kingdom? When he was sighing, he suddenly found that among the white skeletons, there were 3 or 4 gold skeletons. Yi Tianlu pondered and began to slow down and fly forward. When the distance between the two sides is more than 3,000 li, under the cover of God, I feel that the other side has found itself. And speed up, and come this way. At this time, according to the spiritual intensity of the monks in Longmen realm, it should not be possible to find each other. Yi Tian continued to fly a short distance before, then made the appearance of finding each other, turned around and flew back towards the Black Desert. When he was about to reach the edge of the Black Desert, Yi Tian fell to the ground, and Amana put away Dun Tiansuo. Then he strode into the Black Desert. He is a natural enemy of the underworld monk. If we can eliminate the underworld monk in large numbers here, we can naturally relieve the pressure of other monks who enter here. Otherwise, if so many underworld monks go out for a walk, the human monks who come in will not be able to plug their teeth. Moreover, he also needs the Tsangming order of the Golden Skeleton. This battle is inevitable, and the other side may not let it go. When Yi Tian walked out of Liuqili on foot, the dark repair behind him had already flown out of the Black Desert. After the same fall, he stepped into the Black Desert and chased Yi Tian. Yi Tian keeps on walking and moves forward quickly. He has already seen that the other side seems to have a certain tendency towards himself. He spreads a long battle line and pushes it across like a wave in the sea. When all the meditation in the distant sky fell to the ground, and a white tide surged up in the turbulent army, Yi Tian could infer that there were at least 500,000 people in these meditation according to the size of the white tide. In the First World War of Tsangming, he faced almost the same amount of meditation. After entering the Rohai Desert, Yi Tian didn't do it. If he did it too early, he might miss the net. What Yi Tian wants is total annihilation. He kept running forward for a moment, but the meditation behind him seemed to be pursuing him with all his strength. Yi Tian, put down your Hades lotus, and then the enmity will be written off. Unexpectedly, Yi Tian hears the voice of Mingxiu coming from behind him. He stopped and looked back. It was the golden skeleton that had caught up with the front. It turned out to be for the lotus. In this sentence, Yi Tian recognized that the netherworld lotus is really important to the netherworld. It's not because of the meaning of his words, but because the other party actually knows that he has got the netherworld lotus. At that time, in the Sea of Blood, in addition to the red monster, there was only one golden skeleton guarding. And the monster was killed by himself. Theoretically, this matter should not be known by meditation, but in fact, the other party really knows about it. It's certainly not because of hatred that we have aroused so many people. In the world of Tsangming, the most important thing is to mix the world with the underworld. Everything else has to be left behind. They can come after themselves, certainly because of the mixed world Pluto, and now they have something to do with the mixed world Pluto. One is Lingzhen, the other is Pluto Lotus. The underworld people certainly don't know about Lingzhen. This time they come, there is only the netherworld Lotus left. Anyway, we must destroy the good things of Hades. Now Pluto is still being suppressed, there is no threat, it is a good opportunity. Once he gets out of trouble, I'm afraid the whole Terran in time and spirit realm will suffer. Yi Tian is ruthless in his heart and keeps looking back at Mingxiu. 10 li 20 miles 30 miles. When Yi Tian strides out of the distance of more than 30 li, he suddenly turns around and looks at the underworld army who is still chasing him. Yi Tian, you can consider my words. If you agree, I'll give you 10,000 best fairy jade. Catch up with in the front of the golden skeleton. See Yi Tian back. Far away the voice came. Where is the best fairy jade? I want to see the best fairy jade before I think about it. Yi Tian returns away loudly. This is the best fairy jade. In my boneware, there are 10,000 best fairy jade, which represents our sincerity. That gold skeleton is really like a Terran friar. During the conversation, a piece of glittering things really appeared in his hand. Yi Tian's idea covered the past. Yes, it was the best fairy jade. What if I don't? Yi Tian's heart is a joy, opening a mouth to ask away. Then today is your death. Look at my 500,000 troops, and you can't use mana here. You'll be dead. cried the golden skeleton. Can't you use mana? Tian laughs and says that the next moment, his body rises in the air, and Dun Tiansua appears out of thin air, and then his body has stepped on it. In an instant, all the people stopped and there was silence in the black desert. The sea tide like Ming Xiu looked up at Tian in the air, and all of them were petrified in a moment. At the next moment, they turned around and ran back. Tian sneers, and his mind moves. 72 puppets of martial spirit show their bodies. Their figures flash out, directly over the army of the underworld and stand in their way. The ghost puppets got in the way. They scattered around and ran away. In the Baigut Sangming world, it's as easy for a soul puppet to kill a melee that can use magic power as killing a pig or a dog. In this eerie black desert, in the role of Huathan Stone, those meditation can't give full play to their magic power, and they don't have the power to fight with the ghost puppets. Boom 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 72 puppets of martial spirit spread out the art of war in their hands. In a flash of light, the practitioners fell down one by one. Each of the 72 puppets occupied one position, encircling more with less and encircling more. And in a moment of terrible killing, the encirclement is gradually compressed. Tian didn't take part in the battle. He didn't need to take part in the battle because he had a puppet with a military spirit. The massacre continued. Tian looks at it indifferently. He opens his mind from time to time and pays attention to the situation outside the Black Desert. In the crazy massacre, countless white bones splashed everywhere, splashing on the dark desert. At the beginning, there was a little white in the Black Desert, and then it gradually increased. Finally, the battlefield area was full of white, and white overlapped with white, and white bones overlapped to form bone mounds. Occasionally, there was a bit of gold in it, but soon it was covered by white. At last, after the last group of meditation was cut to pieces, the battle ended. None of them escaped from the surrounding area and died in the Black Desert. Tian's idea passed, and the 72 puppets who had just received the troops immediately started to act. Looking for the golden bones on the battlefield full of bones, he sent them to Tian. Tian picked up a piece of gold leg bone with an obvious brand of soul, and in a flash, it had been branded with spirit. With his powerful mind, such a simple process of recognizing the Lord has become extremely short. When the divine idea comes into it, Tian can't help but whisper. At the next moment, 3 puppets of martial spirit are taken out of the bone storage by Tian. It is his own puppet of the late Yuan dynasty. Seeing this scene, Tian laughs. He has no place to go, and it takes no effort. This golden skeleton is not only for the head, but also for the puppet. These 3 are the ghost puppets who have lost contact with him for a long time. Unexpectedly, they are in the hands of this golden skeleton. Yi Tianxin says something, and 3 puppets of martial spirit come out of Shumi commandment and appear beside him. After a careful inspection, he found that 2 of the 3 puppets were the best fairy jade. They didn't have much consumption. They should have fallen into the black desert formed by Huathan stone. However, the other one was exhausted because of the best fairy jade and lost the ability to move. I don't know where the golden puppet got it. After Tian replaced the martial spirit puppet with the best fairy jade, he collected the 3 martial spirit puppets together. Then, his mind went into the boneware again, focusing on its Song Ming Ling. After a little meditation, he understood something. It should be in the process of transmission that the golden skeleton put Sangming Ling into the storage of things and bones, so it entered the bloody space and reached the Sangming realm. Sangming Ling was not taken away by the mysterious force. It seems that the understanding of Sangming Kingdom by the Gui Gudaming clan has reached a certain level, and even this kind of detail can be noticed. There are also some underworld magic weapons such as bone knife, bone gun, and some dark stones in the gold storage boneware. Although these things are useful to Tian, he doesn't pay much attention to them at this time. He quickly put away the golden boneware and picked up another one. This time, in addition to its Sangming order, Tian found 5 puppets of his own. In the same way, some of these martial spirit puppets have no consumption of the best fairy jade, but some of them have already been exhausted. Tian replaced all the martial spirit puppets who had eliminated the best fairy jade with the best fairy jade and put them away. In this short battle, in addition to countless white bones and skeletons, 4 golden bones and skeletons were annihilated and 4 golden storage bones were obtained. After Tian checked them one by one, he found 13 puppets of martial spirit. As for the other bones, Tian simply looked at more than a dozen of them, but he didn't find Song Mingling and the puppets of martial spirit. Even the dark stone was very few, and there were only dozens of pieces in each of them. Put down the hand of the last piece of white bone skeleton storage bone, Tian no longer looked down interest. It seems that some of the lost puppets should have been taken away by the golden skeleton. As long as they find the golden skeleton, they can find their own puppets. With this in mind, Tian quickly put away 72 puppets and took a look at the vast Huafan stone. The eyes of Yuan Tian shine through the stone and look underground. Finally, under careful observation, he found nothing different in no object that Huafan stone could protect. As a result, he took out more than a dozen Shumi commandments and filled them completely. Huafan stone has the function of closing magic power. It is a rare natural resource. For others, it may not be of great use, but for Tian, it is definitely one of his most needed resources. Tian reckons that taking out this little bit of Huafan stone should not make it easy for Ghost Repair to get the protection under the Black Desert. After all, there are a lot of white bones and skeletons buried in the desert. How did these white bones and skeletons enter the realm of Songming? Because the existence of that kind of mysterious power, whether it's the spirit beast ring or the magic weapon cave or the storage bone of the underworld, can't be opened, and can't access the living things at all. There's only one possibility. The underworld people who have entered the Songming world have been lurking in the Songming world until now. This also means that the underworld doesn't need to be invisible anymore. It's the critical moment for the underworld to break away from the suppression. Thinking of this, Tian had a heavy feeling in his heart. After everything was done, Tian put away 72 puppets, stepped on the fierce sword, turned into a white light, and fled to the distance. Outside the Black Desert, there is a world of bones. Different from the Songming kingdom, the bones here are more like hills, with hills scattered and continuous. Of course, these hills are all made up of countless bones. These bones have been weathered seriously for many years. They are mottled with the erosion of years. Some of them are rotten and look like the remains of ordinary people. There is no trace of cultivation in the bones. In Tian's flight, Yuan Tian's eye has found so many things. Every skeleton was once a life. There are human bones and bones of some unknown monsters. According to Tian's idea, it is impossible for Sui Huang to get so many bones, and he will not cause such a huge killing in order to suppress the Hell King. In that case, what's the difference with the mixed name of Hades? It can only be the Hell Repair. Even the Sea of Blood is also made by the Hell Repair. In this way, Tian's hatred for the ghost world is even more extreme. He was flying in the same direction as the previous Sangming order. After a short flight, Tian's eyes suddenly flashed, deflected an angle and flew in a certain direction. Just as he was flying, a scene thousands of miles away suddenly broke into the coverage of his mind. There is also covered with white bones. A group of Terrans are besieged by countless white bones. Through the divine thought, Tian was able to recognize that those people were just the barbarians and the 27 small clans who were quickly selected to enter the Songming kingdom. There were more than 100 people in all. In the crowd, Tian also saw his ghost puppets, about more than 20, in a circle, fighting against the white bones and skeletons. Behind the white skeleton, there are more than 20 golden skeletons. Standing with the golden skeletons, Tian can see the figure of some human friars, about 100 people. Tian had never seen these human friars in Songming kingdom. However, in Tian's memory, he had some impressions of some of the people in it. These people were the monks of Qingyun sect, one of the 8 sections. How could it be that some of the 8 sects also entered the Songming kingdom? When Tian saw this situation, he was surprised. In the world of Baigu Songming, the friars of the 8 sects had been killed by him. Judging from the situation at that time, no one could come in again. However, he could not help disbelieving the fact. At this time, the war between the two sides has entered a white-hot stage. Countless Baigu Mingxiu are frantically attacking the encirclement circle. The more than 20 puppets of martial spirits are protecting around more than 100 monks against the tide of Baigu skeletons. Those puppets, Yi Tian felt a little bit and lost contact with himself. Obviously, they took part in the battle under the command of the Alliance friars. See such a scene, Yi Tian gesture move release Dun Tiansuo, step on it, into a white light toward the battlefield. Once out of the Black Desert, the effect of Huathan Stone can no longer affect Dun Tiansuo. He can use the fastest flying magic weapon for himself. The distance of 10,000 li is not too long for Dun Tiansuo, who flies at full speed. At a certain moment, when the shadow of Dun Tiansuo appeared on the horizon, the situation on the battlefield changed. First, the 8 clan friars and the golden puppets took the lead in driving Dun Guang and fled to the distance. Then, the innumerable white bones and skeletons stopped their offensive like the tide, then turned their direction one after another, and retreated like the tide. The direction they went was exactly the same as that of the golden bone puppets and the 8 sect monks. Such a situation makes Yi Tian's eyes cold. When he comes to Dun Tiansuo in a flash, more than 700 puppets of the late Yuan dynasty and Xu Mijia rush out of the nest. All of them are chasing after the Ming army. The first military spirit puppets naturally give priority to the golden skeleton and the monks of the 8 sects, and then the white skeleton. There are more than 50 military spirit puppets who hunt down the golden skeleton and the disciples of the 8 sections. Compared with the countless white skeleton practitioners, the proportion of pursuing soldiers is very large. At the same time, seeing the arrival of Yi Tian, the monks of the Barbarian and Terran Friars Alliance burst out a burst of cheers from heaven and earth. Then, more than 20 puppets of martial spirit controlled by them also joined the pursuit line in a flash. Alliance leader. More than 700 puppets flew over the battlefield. When they went to kill Mingxiu, Yi Tian urged Dun Tiansuo to stay in the sky of many monks on the battlefield. The Alliance friars below saw Yi Tian's figure and called one after another. Yi Tian opened his mind and took a glance at the many martial spirit puppets released. He had a panoramic view of the situation on the battlefield. With these 700 martial spirit puppets, the fate of the Hell practitioners and the scum of the Terran friars was doomed. It was just a matter of earlier or later time. You don't have any casualties, do you? Part of the mind continued to monitor the battlefield. Yi Tian fell down the body, swept a glance, people asked. Alliance leader, it's a long story. There are no casualties here, but before, several Alliance Taoist friends have unfortunately fallen. We have taken the corpses with us. The reply is a disciple of Duanjian Villa, who is the leader of many disciples sent by Duanjian Villa to Cangming Kingdom. Thanks to the sole puppet of the Alliance leader, we can support it until now, otherwise the consequences will be unimaginable. We met some of the puppets along the way. They had run out of the best fairy jade, and we just had some on them. Without the permission of the Alliance leader, we left the mark of divine thoughts on them, which is why we have been supporting them until now. It's a pity that we have a very limited number of the best immortal jade. There are still some martial spirit puppets that can't be driven. They are still in the Shumi commandment, so they will be returned to the Alliance leader. The disciple of Duanjian Villa continued to speak, and then said to the people behind him, Taoist friends with martial spirit puppets, please give them back to the Alliance leader. With his words, some friars come to Yi Tian and make gestures. A moment later, 17 puppets of martial spirit who have lost their ability to act appear in front of Yi Tian. Alliance leader, if we didn't have these ghost puppets, I'm afraid would all become corpses, which is equivalent to the Alliance leader saving our lives again. The next Alliance friar said with emotion. When Yi Tianlu inquired, he knew the reason. It turned out that these people were also scattered after they entered the Cangming Kingdom. However, because of the communication between the disciples of each sect, they were ready to gather together after a simple communication. I don't know why, in this area full of white bone mound, there are more Terran friars than in other areas. In the process of gathering, the monks of different sects met and joined together. However, unfortunately, they also met some white bones and skeletons who came from nowhere, and the two sides started fighting. Fortunately, there are also some martial spirit puppets who are sent here. These martial spirit puppets received Yi Tian's instruction to protect Alliance friars and kill all enemies before they are sent. This order played an important role in the protection of many Alliance friars. At the beginning, they met only a few ghost puppets. They fought and walked along the road, and finally gathered with some other sect friars. The disciples of other sects also met with martial spirit puppets, so the number of martial spirit puppets increased. However, because the fighting process was too long, some martial spirit puppets became dead after consuming the best fairy jade. Although these monks have the best fairy jade, the number is not large enough to drive these martial soul puppets, so they are put into Shumi ring. The casualties of these alliance friars basically occurred before the meeting of the soul puppets. After meeting the soul puppets, with the protection of these soul puppets, there were no casualties. However, in order to protect themselves, the friars of the alliance only drove the soul puppets to form a circle and protect them, but they did not dare to let them go too far away. Therefore, they did not have the same sweeping effect as Yi Tian when he was controlling them. When the audience finished, Yi Tian understood their situation and asked, "What's the matter with the friars of the 8 sects?" In the crowd, a friar with slightly brown hair said, "The leader of the alliance was sent to Tsangming Kingdom earlier, so I don't know what happened later. I was almost the last one to be sent. I saw with my own eyes the process of 8 sect disciples being sent in. When the leader of the alliance was in the Tsangming Kingdom, the disciples of the 8 sects once stayed at the edge of the Tsangming Kingdom for a long time. During that time, they left some Tsangming decrees there. When the Tsangming Kingdom was opened, I don't know why, those Tsangming orders were not immediately absorbed by the mysterious forces. Because of the lesson of the golden skeleton, they didn't send someone in immediately. After the alliance leader was sent away, the disciples of the 8 sects who had been ready entered the Tsangming Kingdom, took the Tsangming orders, and then they were sent." Hearing this, Yi Tian nods. He thinks to himself that the 8 sects finally refused to give up the chance to enter the Tsangming Kingdom. As a result, they send in a group of disciples to present their heads. "When you come in this time, have you ever seen Pluto Flower and Soul Yuan?" Thinking of the purpose of entering the Tsangming world, Yi Tian looks at the people and asks. Smell speech, everyone looked at each other, and finally they all shook their heads in silence. Unexpectedly, no one had ever seen these two things. The leader of the Duan family pondered and said, "The alliance leader, this time the Tsangming Kingdom was opened very strange. According to previous records, every time that Tsangming Kingdom was opened, although Pluto Flower and Soul Yuan cannot be seen everywhere, they are not very difficult to find. Along the way, we didn't see any of them. It was different from any previous opening of Tsangming Kingdom, but we didn't know why. If there were no Pluto Flower and Soul Yuan, what's the point of so many of our clans working hard to come in?" Yi Tian nodded slightly and said, "Yes, even if I don't know what it was like when Tsangming Kingdom was opened, I can guess it just by what I saw this time. It's different from any time in the past. Because in the present danger, not to mention that you can't see Pluto Flower and Soul Yuan, even if they are everywhere, even if you have the life to get them, you don't have the life to bring them out of Tsangming Kingdom. So, the next step, you don't want to continue to get those things, just wait here, wait until the Tsangming world is closed, send you out, and don't do anything else, otherwise you may be doomed if you are not careful. I'll leave a few soul puppets to protect you. Everything is arranged by the alliance leader." Listen to Yi Tian say so, everybody nods in succession. This time, if Yi Tian didn't come here and wait for those martial spirit puppets to run out of the best fairy jade, the result of waiting for them would be very miserable, and they knew it very well. At this time, Yi Tian no longer said much and began to replace the Xianyu for the puppets. After each replacement, he would brand his own soul again. According to the intensity of his mind after taking Ice Lotus, it's very easy for him to wipe off the spirit mark on it and then remark his own spirit mark. It takes a very short time. Seeing Yi Tian's puppet after puppet, many monks at the scene looked at each other with wonderful expression. Some of them have personally branded the martial spirit puppets with spiritual thoughts. They have personally experienced the difficulty of using the cultivation of Jindan realm to brand the martial spirit puppets in Yuanying realm with spiritual thoughts. However, in front of his eyes, Yi Tian is so relaxed, and he is only a monk in Longmen, which can't shock people. Yi Tian didn't care what those people looked like. He took care of himself with the brand of soul reading. At this time, the Wohuan puppets sent out to hunt down Mingxiu and the disciples of the 8 sects returned one after another. In their hands, some of the puppets still hold the storage of gold skeletons and the Shumi commandments of the friars of the 8 sections. More than an hour later, Tian left 5 puppets of martial spirit and set out on Dun Tiansua again. Among the objects and bones of the golden skeleton, he once again found 24 martial spirit puppets, all of which were included in his Shumi commandment. Up to now, there are still more than 70 puppets of martial spirits that have not been recovered, including those who have remained in the Baigut Sangming kingdom and have not been transmitted. Originally, Tian felt that because he was introduced, he would enter an area where he could not open Shumi commandment, so he arranged the transmission of martial spirit puppets, adding some unnecessary troubles to himself. But now it seems that these puppets can play a role and save the lives of many alliance friars, which is a matter worthy of celebration. Dun Tiansua flies fast in the sky. Now Tian has many Sangming orders in his hand. During the flight, he occasionally releases one to observe the direction of Sangming order. After flying out of the white bone mound, the front is endless, still boundless sea of blood. Looking back silently, Tian feels that the black desert and the white bone mound seem to be just an island in the sea of blood, but a big island. At a certain moment, Tian lowered the flight altitude of Dun Tiansua and flew over the sea of blood. Tian's eyes were shining and looked at the blood-red sea. It seems that the blood sea area here is somewhat different from the previous one. Through the observation of Yuan-Tianian, Tian found that there are still countless mayfly blood souls in it, but the mayfly blood souls here are generally more powerful than those in the previous sea area. Next, he would observe the sea of blood every time he flew for a certain distance, and he was surprised to find that the more he flew forward, it seemed that the blood soul of mayfly became more powerful. Every observation is like this. At this time, Tian, who was frowning and meditating, once again observed. He drove Dun Tiansua to the sky again and looked at the distant horizon to ponder. This situation is absolutely strange. He gestured, and a gold storage bone appeared in his hand. Then he thought, and Sangming Ling in the bone was taken by him. At the moment when Sangming Ling appeared, the mysterious power appeared. Sangming Ling turned into a white light and flew out of Tian's hand to the distant sky. Then it disappeared from Tian's vision. The next moment, Dun Tiansua flies away in the direction of Sangming's disappearance. An hour later, Tian's face on Dun Tiansua showed the color of meditation. Under the cover of divine thoughts, there was still a vast sea of blood, but the sea of blood at the end of divine thoughts was obviously different from that here. The sea of blood here is calm and smooth as a mirror, but the sea of blood at the end of the spirit is rough. The farther away the wave is, the fiercer it is. It looks like a typhoon tsunami, which is soul-stirring. Does Tian draw a question mark in his heart? When he was guessing, with the rapid flight of Dun Tiansua, his eyes suddenly coagulated, and the speed of Dun Tiansua slowed down. In his sight, he could not see the end of his mind, but his expression was as if he had seen it with his own eyes, full of horror. In the sea of blood thousands of miles away, there stands a huge tower, which is as big as a high mountain connected with the sky. In the sea of blood, there is a thick column of water rising in the air, pouring into the tower. The momentum is very frightening. There are dozens of such red water columns, all of which come out of the sea of blood and pour into the huge tower with a huge momentum. What he had seen before was that the turbulence seen in the sea of blood was caused by the chain reaction caused by dozens of water columns. In front of the huge tower, there are many gold skeletons, and the number is thousands. This number is almost the same as that of all Sangming orders. There is a doubt in Tian's heart. Did the underworld secretly send in so many gold skeletons before? If it wasn't for their own trouble this time, is it possible that all Sangming orders in the white-boned Sangming world will be obtained by the underworld, and then thousands of their golden skeletons will enter the Sangming world and join in the rescue of the underworld? Thinking of this, Tian's heart moved, and a gold storage bone appeared in his hand again, and then Sangming Ling appeared in his hand. No surprise, this Sangming Ling also turned into a white light and flew to the distance. Tian's mind firmly locked the white light, and then went away. But the white light flew over a distance of 10,000 li at a very fast speed and went towards the giant tower, which was poured by dozens of red seawater. Finally, the white light entered the giant tower in a flash. Then, a scene that shocked Tian appeared. White light entered the tower, and a thick red water column disappeared out of thin air. The water column poured into the tower was reduced by 1. Is it? Yi Tian gestures again, and took out a gold storage bone, just as he wanted to take out that Sangming Ling inside, but suddenly the sea of blood below suddenly burst open, a raging wave soared into the air, turned into a huge bloody skeleton and swallowed it towards Yi Tian. What the fuck? Yi Tian exclaimed, and Dun Tiansuo turned into a white light. In front of this huge bloody skeleton, the comparison between the two is like a bird flying in front of a magnificent mountain. The difference between the two is too great. However, even in such a critical moment, Yi Tian still did not delay to take out Sangming's order, and then flew to the huge tower thousands of miles away under the huge traction of the mysterious force. With his insight, it can be seen at a glance that the huge tower must be the place to suppress the underworld. It is because there are many Sangming decrees, that is, so many white bone runes, which have not completed the field, that the red water column is poured into the giant tower. There are countless mayfly blood spirits in this kind of red water column, which can strengthen the soul body. It is the great tonic for the soul of the mixed world Pluto. It is not difficult to see that the soul of the mixed world Pluto is devouring the mayfly blood spirits in the sea through these red water columns. If we give him enough time, enough mayfly blood soul to devour, and then expand the soul of the mixed world Pluto, what will happen is completely unpredictable. Therefore, Yi Tian took out the Sangming order for the first time to make up for the suppression of the underworld. Sure enough, with the Sangming order in Yi Tian's hand flying out into the huge tower thousands of miles away, another red water column suddenly stopped and disappeared out of thin air. Ouch! But at this time, the red skeleton gave out a howl similar to a monster, and its body became bigger again. It was a bit bigger than just now, and a pair of scarlet skeletons without any flesh and blood clapped their palms toward Yi Tian. At this time, Yi Tian, although Dun Tiansuo was very fast, the distance he moved at such a speed was still under the attack of the big red skeleton, as if he could not get rid of it anyway. Boom! Yi Tianxin says something. A martial spirit puppet flies out of the air from him in the late Yuan dynasty. Lightning strikes the palm with fear of pressure. A huge sound is made. With a bang, the half-immortal soldier's flying sword in the hand of the martial spirit puppet is cut on the palm bone of the red giant skeleton. The sword was also like cutting to a mountain like the top of Mount Tai. With a bang, the red giant palm was cut out of a gap, and then the gap was quickly closed and turned into a complete palm again. However, the red palm of the martial spirit puppet never stops clapping on the martial spirit puppet. The great power makes the martial spirit puppet fall straight to the blood sea below with a sudden blow. Although the martial spirit puppet wanted to fly again with great strength during the landing, the red giant palm that was pressed down did not hesitate to follow him, and it did not give up until he patted the body of the martial spirit puppet into the sea of blood. On top of Dun Tiansuo, Yi Tian's eyes flashed a color of surprise. The strength of the bloody skeleton had greatly exceeded his expectation. Even the ghost puppet is not its opponent. At this time, the red giant's skull has completely closed the road in front of Yi Tian. It is generally connected with the sky and grounded below, and it also occupies a large space horizontally. Moreover, the red giant's skull's moving speed and strange action are really incredible. It seems impossible to get around the red giant skeleton and rush to the giant tower thousands of miles away. A few thoughts flashed through his mind. Without hesitation, Yi Tian released more than a dozen puppets of martial spirit, all of them rushed directly towards the bloody skeleton. And there was no slighting in his hand. Once again, there was a golden boneware, and then another Sangming order was released by him. As soon as the signet with white bone was taken out of the gold storage bone, it turned into a white light and was about to fly away in the distance. Unexpectedly, the red giant skeleton wire ignored the attack of the puppet, but suddenly burst out a blood light to meet the white light. There was nothing special about that group of blood light. It was like a part of the body of a bloody giant skull, scarlet. It was extremely inconspicuous in the red space. However, when Xue Guang and the white light transformed by the white Kangmingling met, it was suddenly red and flashed several times. The red light turned into a red shield to wrap Kangmingling in it. Driven by that mysterious force, it seems that nothing can stop its return. Sangmingling was miraculously trapped in the red shield and could no longer break through the red light. What the hell is this? Yi Tian was surprised. He thought that the mysterious power left by Sui Huang should be broken everywhere, and no one could shake its power. However, the current situation made him rejudge the means of repairing the ghost world. It seems that the other party is trying to prevent the return of Tsang Mingling. The more so, the more urgent Yi Tian wants to release Tsang Mingling. Every second of delay, the ghost of the netherworld may devour countless mayflies, making his soul more powerful. The reason why the underworld chose to start the Tsangming world this time is that they must have made a lot of preparations, and they should have a certain degree of success. Otherwise, once Tsangming Kingdom was opened in the past, there was no sign of the ghost world and no action was taken, which is enough to explain the problem. If the Ghost Kingdom had taken action in the opening of Tsangming Kingdom before, I believe that with the strength of 8 sects and 27 sects, he would not have been aware of it at all. If you realize the action and purpose of the ghost world, I believe that the Terran side will not be unprepared, or even send disciples to participate in the opening of the Tsangming world. Even the traitors of the human race among the 8 sects, Taiman, will certainly not cooperate with the Ghost Kingdom. After all, the purpose of their cooperation is to strengthen their own sects and suppress other sects, so that they can dominate the spirit kingdom of Taiman. Such a thought, Yi Tian's heart is more heavy. But at this time, the red light that trapped Tsangming Ling suddenly flashed again and sent out several dazzling red lights. Then the red light disappeared, and the Tsangming Ling trapped by the red light disappeared together. Yi Tian looked at it carefully with Yuan Tian's eyes, but he didn't find where the Tsangming order was sent. This happened only in a very short moment, and at this time, more than a dozen puppets released by Yi Tian could fly to the red giant skeleton. The puppet, who had been photographed by the red giant skull before, also rushed out of the water with a column of water and rushed towards the red giant skull. Boom! 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 A lot of roaring noises rose up in the sky, and the attack of many martial spirit puppets fell on the red giant skeleton. Suddenly, countless blood waves surged and splashed everywhere. The red giant skeleton's body was badly damaged by the bombardment. However, what shocked Yi Tian was that no matter how fierce the attack of the martial spirit puppet was and how seriously the red giant skull was injured, the magic red giant skull was completely restored to its original state in a very short time, as if he had never been hurt, and even his breath did not weaken. What the hell is it? The combination of Mayfly Blood Soul is absolutely not so strong. Yi Tian stares at the bloody giant skeleton like a mountain in front of him. Dun Tiansuo shoots to the side quickly. The red giant skeleton has more power to clap himself when he is dealing with the attack of the martial spirit puppet. Although Yi Tian is confident that with the strength of his body, even if he takes the palm, it won't be a big problem, but how can he take the palm in vain? Boom! 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 Yi Tian's speed is fast, but the red giant skull's speed is faster. This strange red giant skull is like Avalokitesvara with 1,000 hands. When Yi Tian is not photographed with one hand, another red giant hand will be photographed at any time, followed by another hand, and one hand will live forever. Almost in the short time that Yi Tian drove Dun Tiansuo to escape, the red giant skull shot dozens of palms in succession. It's not the kind that one palm is empty, then it's taken back and then it's taken out again. It's the kind that one palm is empty, and then another palm comes back. Through the naked eye, the dozens of palms patted to Yi Tian were the palms of a red giant skeleton, and the palms of this thing were even more than those of a squid. Yi Tian dodges and observes the red giant skull. If he didn't move very fast, he would have been photographed many times by the palms of the red giant skull. However, even if not photographed by the red giant skull, Yi Tian is also very embarrassed at this time. The whole person has to dodge, and there is no room to fight back. He didn't continue to send out ghost puppets to attack. Now he has seen that no matter how many ghost puppets there are, they can't completely destroy the red giant skeleton. The opponent's regeneration ability is too strong. Even if the ghost puppet blew the red giant skull's head out of a hole, the other side could still recover again and didn't fight at all. I see. After a few breaths, Yi Tian finally found a clue in the process of the continuous attack of the martial spirit puppets and the continuous recovery of the red giant skeleton. When the red giant skull rushed out of the Red Sea, it was a separate existence, even when it attacked the martial spirit puppet and even Yi Tian. But when it recovered its damaged body, it connected the whole body with the Red Sea. So many times, all of them. Yi Tian can easily associate that the whole red giant skull is recovering its body with the help of the vast red seawater. To be more precise, it should be recovering its body with the help of the blood soul of Mayfly in the red seawater. The red seawater is vast, and you can't see the end at a glance. If you really rely on the seawater to recover your body, then this red giant skeleton has an immortal body. It is impossible to use up all the Mayfly's blood souls in the Red Sea with the fighting power of the puppet. Even give more time cannot do, unless in endless years, always constantly attacking. In this case, Yi Tian could not even afford to consume the best fairy jade needed by the martial spirit puppet. What's more, the opening time of Songning Kingdom was limited, and he absolutely did not have enough time. But now, he doesn't know how far he has recovered. The more anxious he was, the more apathetic he looked. At the next moment, more than 100 puppets of martial spirits appeared out of thin air, facing 3 red giant palms that were patted at him at the same time. He no longer relied on the speed of running away from Tiansua to avoid the attack of the red giant skull. The best defense is attack. He is to let these ghost puppets attack, to ease the red giant skull's continuous attack on himself. It seems that the red giant skeleton has a lot of intelligence. Under the attack of many martial spirit puppets, he can still find that he is the leader of these attacks. Therefore, he even takes a non-defensive attitude towards the attack of martial spirit puppets, and just attacks himself continuously. There are many ghost puppets attacking those palms. After being attacked by the ghost puppets, those red palms need to be constantly restored before they can launch the next attack. But, similarly, the red giant skull's attack became fierce. This time, it was not several palms patted at the same time, but dozens, even hundreds of red palms patted at Yi Tian at the same time. These red palms are continuous, and all of them are superimposed together, just like the huge waves growing on the red giant skeletons. And those soul puppets, like the invincible guards in the angry sea, fought bravely and bravely, smashed the huge waves again, and so on. Only on the Red Sea, in front of the huge red skeleton, people were flying, red waves were surging and splashing, and the roaring sound was endless. Take advantage of this opportunity, Yi Tian gesture move, the hand appeared that handles small mirror magic weapon. His eyes flashed fiercely, and a magic power penetrated into the small mirror. In an instant, a white light shot out of the small mirror, directly on the thick legs of the red giant skeleton like a hill. While with a light sound, the white light with extremely cold air hit the red giant skeleton's thick leg like a hill. At once, a large volume of red sea water turned into red icicles, which were frozen by the magic weapon of the small mirror. Yi Tian's idea covers the red giant skeleton, and his hands move continuously urging the magic weapon of the small mirror, making a series of terrible cold light. The target positions are relatively small legs of the red giant skull. Don't you create an immortal body by connecting with the Red Sea? Then Laozi will break the connection between you and the Red Sea, so that you can't absorb the Mayfly blood soul in the sea to repair the skeleton blood body. Today, Yi Tian not only controls the 5 elements, but also attacks the ice and snow attributes. With the terrifying power of this little mirror magic weapon, after more than 10 attacks in succession, he really realizes his strategic intention and freezes a part of the legs of the red giant skeleton, turn into 2 crystal clear red icicles. In this way, the appearance of the red giant skull becomes a little strange. A small section of the legs freezes, which is the shape of an icicle. Above the icicle, including the thighs and even the whole upper body, it is still made of red seawater. Ouch! The red giant skeleton let out an angry roar, and was hit by more than 100 ghost puppets. As expected, it lost the ability to recover again. Just when Yi Tian thinks he has got it and is ready to let the martial spirit puppet continue to launch a fierce attack, he suddenly sees a red smog-like gas coming from the red giant skull under the light of Yuantian's eye and pounces on himself. Soul body. Yi Tian is too familiar with the spirit body of the underworld. Although the spirit body is different from that of other underworld, it is extremely strange in color and strength, but Yi Tian recognized it at the first sight. As expected, it is not the blood soul of Mayfly. This soul body is much more powerful than a single blood soul of Mayfly, and it is not the combination of blood soul of Mayfly. Otherwise, it will never escape the eye of Yi Tian. This is clearly an independent soul body. The next moment, when Yi Tian saw the soul body rushing towards him, the fused three-color original spirit fire suddenly flew out of Yi Tian's elixir field, turned into a huge fire phoenix and swept away towards the red soul body. Almost at the same time, the Millennium Peach Tree Thunder Sword appeared in Yi Tian's hands. Next breath, a terrible thunder clattered down and fell on the soul body swallowed by the original spirit fire.
Tian, I remember you.
Just when the red spirit body was destroyed under the dual attack of the original spirit fire and the terrible thunder, a nihilistic voice suddenly came out of the sky, as if it was just in Yi Tian's ear. It sounded very clear, but it didn't have a sense of direction.
The underworld?
Yi Tian can't think of a second one who can call himself the king. At the moment of hearing the sound, Yi Tianyu looked around, but he didn't find anything else. He just saw that when the red spirit was killed, a white light flew out of the falling waves and flew towards the giant tower thousands of miles away. But the Tsangming order, which was taken away by the red giant skull, was out of the control of the red giant skull and flew away by the mysterious force.
Yi Tian quickly releases his mind, locks the Tsangming order and tracks its final destination.
The speed of white light is very fast, and it will soon approach the giant tower with tens of red blood columns. At this time, the Red Sea water in front of the giant tower suddenly surges up, covering half of the sky.
The next moment, the white light of Tsangming's order was thrown into the blood wave, and it was stopped again.
However, the blood wave that stopped Tsangming's order was slowly deformed, and after a moment, it turned into a red giant skeleton again. Looking at his figure, he was even taller than the red giant skeleton killed by Yi Tian before. Yi Tian and Dun Tiansua feels such a situation, and his eyes can't help narrowing slightly. He can infer that the red giant skeleton in front of the giant tower must also have a strong red soul, but he is not sure whether this red soul is a part of the ghost of the netherworld Pluto or some other powerful meditation center. But it is clear that the oppressed underworld has awakened, if it was in a coma before, and it has reached the critical moment of breaking away from the repression. There is the red giant skeleton guarding in front of the giant tower.
He didn't release Tsangming order again. It's useless to release it again.
The other side has taken precautions. After putting away more than 100 puppets, Yi Tian manipulated Dun Tiansua to fly towards the giant tower. After flying more than 100 li, Yi Tian's speed of running away from Tiansua is slow. Under the cover of his mind, the red giant skeleton in front of the giant tower drives the boundless tide towards him. In the surging waves, the red giant skull seems to be a moving mountain, sweeping over at a very fast speed. Behind the red giant skeleton, hundreds of golden skeletons followed and flew here.
Why do you want to do harm to the world?
Yi Tian's eyes were cold, and he continued to urge Dun Tiansua to meet him.
Hundreds of golden skeletons account for almost half of the total.
In addition to this huge red skeleton, it can be seen that the Ghost Kingdom has regarded itself as the underworld, getting rid of the strong resistance of repression.
Then, I will eradicate these ghosts and never let them succeed. In this case, Yi Tian didn't issue Tsangming order again.
Since the other side can intercept, it's useless to release more. The two sides are facing each other. Before long, the red giant skeletons and hundreds of golden skeletons have appeared in the sky, which can be seen by the naked eye. At this time, Yi Tian's eyes coagulated. Under the close range of his mind, he had seen that the red giant skull was different from the previous one. The red giant skeleton killed by himself before was all made up of red seawater.
Yi Tian found that there were many white bones in the seawater.
They are all magic weapons used by Ming Xiu like bone knife and bone gun.
Has the attack mode changed?
Yi Tian calms down Dun Tiansua and thinks in his heart that since he dares to come over, he must have something to rely on, but he can't underestimate him. Moreover, it is obvious that the other party knows the way of the red giant skeleton's death. The red giant skeleton is like a huge unfinished statue. Above the demon department, it is still in the shape of a skeleton, but below the waist, it is connected with the surging red seawater, and has no legs at all.
If the red giant skull is not so ferocious, it is more appropriate to use the trapezoid of mermaid. Come on. Fight.
Finding the oddity in the red giant skeleton, Yi Tian not only didn't give birth to fear, but also ignited a full of pride. The more efforts the hell cultivation in the ghost region makes to deal with himself, the more it shows that what he has done has made them afraid.
So, what are you afraid of? What do I have to do?
Each of you has a body and bones, and each body and bone is the life of a fellow human. Since you have done evil and poisoned the world, although Yi Tian's realm is low, as a human monk, I have to use all kinds of means to prevent the Messiah from getting out of trouble again. Thinking about this, the next moment, when the red giant skeleton and hundreds of golden skeletons are getting closer and closer, Yi Tian's gesture moves, and has already lifted the magic weapon of the seal. Since this seal is called Mountain and River Seal by the ghost cultivation, and I am so afraid of it, then I named it Mountain and River Seal to deal with you ghost cultivation. Isn't the red giant skull rooted in the sea of blood and shaped like a mountain? Then use this seal to suppress you monsters. Go! When the red giant skeleton and hundreds of golden skeletons were approaching, Yi Tian yelled and printed the magic weapon in his hand. No, it's time to call it Shanha seal now. He has already done it. A dark golden light flickered, and the mountain and river were printed into tens of acres, covering the bloody sky and bumping into the red giant skull. Boom! With a loud noise, the mountain and river seal collided with the red giant skeleton. The huge red giant skeleton was immediately collapsed, and countless huge blood waves flew away. This kind of flying is very slow, just like the slow motion in the movie. It slowly flies away from the body of the red giant skeleton, slowly vacates, and then slowly falls down. The red giant skull is also affected by the gravity field of the mountain river seal. The most influential are the more than 100 golden skeletons covered by the seal cage. They are struggling in the gravity field of the seal, and each movement is as slow and sluggish as in the sticky swamp. Go and kill it! Yi Tian yells, and 72 puppets in treasure clothes rush into the gravity field of Shanhian. Under the gravity field of Shanhian, there are 72 martial spirit puppets in treasure clothes. It's as if they are in the realm of Baigut Sangming. It's as effortless as chopping melons and vegetables to kill the golden skeleton. In almost one face-to-face, more than 100 gold skeletons covered by the gravity field of Shanhian were all killed by the puppets. However, some golden puppets, which are not affected by the gravity field, have bypassed the coverage of the gravity field and shot towards Yi Tian. Don't you dare to compete with you without gravity field? Yi Tian thought again. More than 200 puppets appeared at the same time, and killed the flying golden skeleton. Although he had seen it, maybe these golden skeletons were nourished by the blood spirits of mayflies in the sea of blood, and their strength increased a lot. However, in the Sangming world, no matter how to grow, it's just the realm of Hades. Even the top Hades are far from the opponent of the puppets in the late Yuan dynasty. Inside and outside the gravity field of Shanhian, it is a one-sided massacre. But at this time, Yi Tian flew up from Dun Tiansuo. With a gesture, the seal of mountains and rivers shrank quickly and held it in his hand. Then he hit the bloody giant skull, which had just left the gravity field. With a bang, the blood wave splashed again, and the mountain and river seal heavily bumped into the bloody giant skull. In the later period of Yuanying realm, the 72 puppets flew into the body of the bloody giant skeleton and began to kill in a crazy way. Boom, boom! The sound of bombardment was continuous. The huge bloody skeletons, which were as big as mountains, began to collapse from the inside. The waves of blood burst out from different parts of the body, just like a stream of blood arrows. It looked very terrible. With Yi Tian's knowledge, we naturally know that it is impossible to build such a huge blood-color giant skeleton by a powerful soul body alone. We can only rely on the power of the soul to attach to the blood souls of many mayflies. It can be said that every part of the blood-color giant skeleton is the extension of the powerful soul body. Each attack may weaken the powerful soul body to a certain extent. As long as the soul body is continuously weakened and the supplementary way of the soul body from the mayfly blood soul is cut off, the powerful soul body will eventually become weaker and weaker. This time, Yi Tian's supplementary method of cutting off the blood soul of mayfly was no longer a small mirror, but a mountain and river seal. The blood spirits of mayflies in the Red Sea are also affected by the gravity field. Although the blood-color giant skeletons are always connected with the blood sea, the blood spirits of mayflies in a considerable part of the area are unable to supplement the blood-color giant skeletons. However, the 72 puppets in the blood-color giant skeleton are so powerful. Soon, the blood-color giant skeleton has been attacked in a dilapidated state, and the body as high as a mountain has fallen layer upon layer, turning into countless waves and slowly falling into the sea of blood.
A white light suddenly flashed out of the sea of blood, quickly disappeared in Yi Tian's vision, and finally flew into the huge tower thousands of miles away. At this time, Yi Tian, who was ready, makes a series of moves.
Sangming orders are taken out from the storage of the golden skeleton by him. He is attracted by the mysterious forces and flies out. A white light through the undulating sea of blood. In the moment of entering the giant tower, each white light has stopped the connection between a red water column and the giant tower. The red water column connected to the giant tower is rapidly decreasing. From more than 40 to more than 30, then to more than 20, and finally less than 10. The Tsangming order in the golden bone ware has been used up, and there is no Tsangming order available anymore.
Terran boy, damn it.
Once again, a voice came out from the sky, which was completely turned into red sea water by the ghost puppet. Finally, the blood-colored giant skeleton that melted into the blood sea no longer exists, but Yi Tian has not found the existence of the red soul in it so far.
However, Yi Tian couldn't manage so much.
He moved his mind and put away the seal of mountains and rivers. Then a series of divine thoughts were sent out. In a moment, a puppet of martial spirit took the storage of the killed golden skeleton. Yi Tian checked 6 or 7 in a row, but he didn't find any trace of Tsangmingling, but there were a lot of dark stones inside. Just about to continue to check the next gold storage bone, Yi Tian's hand suddenly shakes. Then he put all the gold objects and bones into Shumi commandment, and many martial spirit puppets were put away in a very short time. After counting his breath, Dun Tiansua shot at the huge tower thousands of miles away. Just now, under the cover of divine thoughts, Yi Tian saw something that he could never think of. That is a lotus root, old color, but it exudes the same luster as jade, just a short section, but Yi Tian feels so familiar.
Yes, it's Sanqing Sanchilian.
He didn't expect to see Sanqing Sancher lotus here. He just didn't know whether the Sanqing Sancher lotus was born from the same root as his own. It's rare for the 3 generations of lotus to be born from the same root. If not, I hope to find another Sanqing Sancher lotus. However, the lotus he saw was suspended in front of the huge tower thousands of miles away and was taken out of the storage by a gold skeleton.
Is it necessary to save the soul of the Hell King?
Pluto flower.
Han Yuan. Yi Tian, who was on Dun Tiansua, now narrowed his eyes again.
Under the divine induction, he saw 2 golden skeletons coming out of the line in front of the giant tower. One of them slowly emerged in front of a huge flower of Hades, while the other appeared in front of a large Soul Yuan. Although the Hades flower and Soul Yuan over there are not as big as what they get, there is not much difference between them.
Yi Tian presses his palm on Duan Tiansua and inputs mana crazily to speed up Duan Tiansua's escape.
Pluto flower and Soul Yuan, he cannot, but that cut 3 life 3 lotus root, but it is necessary to get. Under the divine sense, with only 7 red pillars of water pouring, the Pluto flower slowly flew up, floated to the giant tower, and then disappeared in a flash of white light.
Don't touch my life. Yi Tian murmured and kept whispering.
He wanted to fly to the giant tower and take the lotus root. At this time, he was always quite satisfied with the speed of Dun Tiansua, but it became so slow that he was anxious.
Boom. 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 When Dun Tiansua was urged by Yi Tian's magic power, he flew to the giant tower quickly.
In front, on the rough sea, countless bloody monsters emerged, dense and invisible.
Gods should kill gods, ghosts should kill ghosts.
In such a battle, Yi Tian did not retreat, but advanced. Dun Tiansua's shield opened abruptly, and still ran forward with the same speed. There was a huge noise, and there was a bump in Dun Tiansua.
Those monsters that are completely formed by red seawater are quite powerful.
Under one blow, they actually have the strength of the early Yuan dynasty. When they are shot on Dun Tiansua, they look like red seawater, but this kind of attack gives Yi Tian a sense of substance.
Dense red monster, boundless, looking at people's scalp numb.
At this time, there is no monster in Yi Tianyan's eyes.
There is no danger to himself.
In his eyes, there is only the lotus root. He can only wake Ning Yao up and rebuild his body. With a bang, the shield of Dun Tiansua, who was flying with all his strength, suddenly opened. In the late period of his more than 50 years of life, the puppets of martial spirit appeared one after another.
They were like killing machines, protecting Dun Tianxua in all directions and rushing forward. There is no fancy circle, all are direct, hard to open. Although there are many red monsters, there is no enemy under the hands of these martial spirit puppets. Even if they run into each other with their bodies, those red monsters are still not the opponents of the martial spirit puppets. The ghost puppet escorted Dun Tianxua to collide all the way. Everywhere he went, there was a sea of blood. The sky was dark and the earth was dark. His momentum was extremely frightening. It seems that the underworld is really anxious, regardless of everything. In the process of escaping from Tianxua, Tian Shenian firmly locked the lotus root, but he had already guessed. Clearly know that these bloody monsters cannot stop their own pace, but just let them out, must be delaying their own time. It seems that the one who used to be the most powerful one in Timon's spiritual realm is afraid of such a monk in Longmen realm. The martial spirit puppet opened the way in front of him, keeping the speed at the normal flying and escaping level of the late Yuan dynasty monks, but the speed was much slower than that of Dun Tianxua. This speed makes Yi Tian anxious. The next moment, his heart a horizontal, once again called out 4 martial spirit puppets, then stood in the closed defense shield of Dun Tianxua on the spot to open the way. However, the puppets of martial spirits in all directions were taken back by Yi Tian one after another. These 4 puppets of martial spirits made their way into the endless array of red monsters. Boom boom, no matter in the fierce collision, Yi Tian poured a lot of red sea water into Dun Tianxua, just manipulated the Dun Tianxua to fly forward. Along the way, the martial spirit puppets did not care about the blood monsters in other places. One of them was forward, the other was backward, and the other 2 protected the left and right sides. All the blood monsters that prevented Dun Tianxua from flying or attacking Dun Tianxua exploded with one sword. Even occasionally, Dun Tianxua also rushed across and broke through the dense blood-colored monsters. Yi Tian didn't do it, but he inspired a defensive talisman to protect himself. All the way to kill, all the way to crash. This kind of scene is more shocking than Yi Tian's impact on the skeleton in the world of White Bone Sunming. From time to time, the roar came out, blood splashed all the way in the sky, rushing everywhere, escaping where Tianxua passed. Shengsheng opened a broken red blood road. Yi Tian, who is a recluse in the sky shuttle, has a cold look, just like a young man in a boat. He shuttles through the sea of blood quickly without being moved by the splashing seawater. In less than half an hour, it was getting closer to the tower. At the moment, the floating Soul Yuan turned into a white light and quickly put into the giant tower. The Terran boy has stirred up the king's plan for thousands of years, so that the king can no longer recover to the peak state. However, it's more than enough to kill you. You'd better save your life until the moment when I get out of trouble. Ha ha ha. At this time, a voice full of anger came into Yi Tian's ear, and even the laughter behind it contained a huge anger. Yi will never give you a chance to get out of trouble. In the process of escaping from heaven, Yi Tian hears that voice and hums coldly. Then Yuan Tian's eyes are all focused on the giant tower, trying to find out where the ghost body of the mixed world Pluto is. At this time, I saw that Yi Tian was getting closer and closer, and all the hundreds of golden skeletons in front of the giant tower were all shining towards Dun Tianxua. To death! Yi Tian explosive gave a drink, released hundreds of martial spirit puppets again, and greeted groups of golden skeletons. Even the 4 puppets on Dun Tianxua were released by Yi Tian. Dun Tianxua, light-loaded, smashed the interception of the golden skeleton in a flash of white light and rushed straight to the giant tower. The next moment, the seal in his hand suddenly took out his hand and quickly enlarged into tens of acres in the air. It seemed that he was bumping towards the giant tower, but in the middle of the way, he suddenly stopped, firmly covering the 3rd lotus in the center of the seal. The gravity field here is finally. What a cunning Terran boy! At this time, the familiar, ethereal voice suddenly came to mind in the sky, and then the Sanqing Sancher lotus, shrouded by the seal of mountains and rivers, began to move slowly and flew towards the giant tower. With this ability, I want to destroy the king's plan and take away the king's treasure? The sound began again. This skill? Yi Tian's eyes burst out with cold light, and he gave a big drink. Instead of snatching the Sanqing Sancher lotus, he made a gesture. The huge Xianyang stone was held in his hand, and his body shape was an enclave to put it on the floating mountain and river seal. For a moment, the lotus root, which was still slowly moving towards the nearby, suddenly stopped. At the next moment, two pairs of heavenly wings behind Yi Tian have appeared. Under one fan, he comes to the lotus root and reaches for it. He grabs the lotus root in his hand. Then, without time to take a close look at the lotus root, he integrated it into Shumi commandment. Return my treasure. Return my treasure.
I will kill you. I will tear you up.
The fury was heard again in the sky.
You can't kill me, but I can kill you. Yi Tian's mouth a big drink, slowly close to the giant tower.
Before the source of heaven I shine through, he found the place of the mixed world Pluto. In the giant tower, it is like another sea of blood, but the scale is much smaller and the color is lighter. There are countless corpses floating on the red water in the tower, some of them are human corpses, and some of them are obviously the body rune bones used by the meditation. Above the sea, a huge red soul is extremely eye-catching, as if the human heart is constantly moving, and it also gives out a dim light. Only a few thick blood columns poured into the tower and directly impacted on the red soul. Countless mayfly blood souls in it were swallowed by the soul in an instant, leaving only the desalinated seawater. In addition, under the light of Yuan Tian eye, Yi Tian strangely found that there were countless red lines on the soul body, leading to different parts of the pagoda. If he didn't have Yuan Tian eye, he would not be able to see those secret red lines with his naked eye.
Is this the field of the underworld? It's not so easy to get rid of repression, is it? Today Yi Mao lets you not be able to achieve a wish?
Seeing that the ghost of the underworld is still under the suppression of the field, I can't help but feel relieved, and then said hatefully.
You know the hell, who are you? How do you know? The voice in the sky is obviously a Lang. It seems very unexpected that Yi Tian knows his real identity. Don't ask me how I know. I only ask you. Do you remember the reason why Sui Huang suppressed you here? Remember the last thing he said? Yi Tian once again asked harshly. There are too many secrets hidden in Songming world, many of which Yi Tian can't understand anyway. If he can cheat some of the best from the underworld, even if he can't, it's just a waste of a word. Who knows? The red spirit body hears the speech, can't help but the spirit body's obvious voice trembles, and then exclaims, You. Are you? You are the disciple that Sui Huang said. What Sui Huang said is actually true.
There are only a few words, which are incomplete and even can't express the meaning. But Yi Tian's heart is shrugged. From a limited number of words, Yi Tian has heard a lot, and guessed the meaning which is not clearly said.
Did Sui Huang figure out that he wanted to enter Songming Kingdom? He thought a move, continue to say, since guess Ye's identity, you should know Yi is to do? Even if you are Sui Huang's disciple, what can you do? Can you kill me? You are just a little monk in Longmen realm. It's a shame for Sui Huang to be in such a realm.
The ghost of the underworld cried hysterically. It turned out that the Sui Huang was waiting for himself to kill the ghost of the underworld.
From each other's words, Yi Tian can easily recognize this time.
As a result, he has no scruples in his heart. Before that, he thought that there was any deeper meaning or other plan for Sui Huang to suppress the netherworld. He was afraid that his good intentions would become a bad thing if he could not deal with it well, which might destroy Sui Huang's plan. Since Sui Huang is to kill the soul of the Hell King by his own hand, then he has no scruples.
I'll see if I can kill you soon.
Yi Tian said in a cold voice. His gesture moved, and the mask of grimace appeared in his hand.
Ah!
The curse of Hades. He only came and gave out a cry of surprise, then he was drowned by the sound of explosion. Boom, boom among the giant pagodas, countless body runes floating on the red water surface were detonated by the ghost mask. The huge explosions overlapped and gathered together. The powerful explosive force made the whole pagoda emit a rumbling sound, and then collapsed at the next moment. A white light flew away from the surging red water, and in a moment it had reached a very far distance. The towering tower is still collapsing, because it is collapsed by the powerful explosive force below. The whole tower loses its foundation and falls from the air like a free-falling body. The huge tower body smashed on the collapsed tower foundation, smashed in the boundless seawater, that kind of extremely shocking scene, as if the end of the world came, the building collapsed, everything was destroyed.
Is Sui Huang really waiting for this day? Waiting for myself to enter the world of Tsangming? Kill the ghost of the underworld and destroy this huge tower of repression? But what is all this for? If it wasn't for Yuan Tianzai, seeing the ghost of the underworld completely destroyed in the terrible explosion, turning into wisps of black smoke and disappearing from the tower forever, I'm afraid Yu Tian would not have the mind to think about so many problems now. Master, I feel my soul. Just when he couldn't understand it, the voice of Xianlong's sword spirit suddenly rang out in Yi Tian's mind. Are you sure? Yi Tian asked with a bright look in his eyes. Although he asked, he had already confirmed the statement of Xianlong's sword spirit in his heart. After all, from the beginning to now, the sword spirit hasn't missed it. But Yi Tian has a little doubt. Since there are fragments of fierce sword in Tsangming world, why didn't Xianlong's sword spirit feel it before? Sure enough, the soul of Xianlong's sword immediately said, I can't feel wrong. The ghost was originally on the top of the giant tower. Before, it might be because of the existence of the field, which hindered my feeling. Now I really feel it. Between speaking, the fierce sword in Yi Tian's hand vibrates violently, which makes Yi Tian feel the urgency of Ziyun Longjianling. Lead the way. He loosened his hand, said a word in a soft voice, then turned into a shadow, and followed the fierce flying sword. The fierce soldier's flying sword flew out of a distance on the red water, suddenly turned its direction and plunged down towards the red water. Seeing this, Yi Tian took out the 5-element beads. As soon as he was summoned by the mana, he entered the water in a sudden halo. A few minutes later, Yi Tian came to the top of the half-broken tower submerged by the Red Sea with the fierce sword. It's in here. The sound of the sword spirit of Ziyun Dragon rings. In the halo of the 5-element beads, there is no red seawater. Yi Tianyuan's eyes shine through and he looks at the top of the hexagonal stone. As expected, he finds a brocade box in a closed stone chamber on the top of the tower. Looking through the brocade box, you can see a piece of broken sword which is more than 2 inches long lying inside. Its color, appearance, including the incomplete rune patterns on it all show that this piece of broken sword is exactly the piece of Ziyun sword which Yi Tian is very familiar with. With the help of the 5-element beads, Yi Tian takes out the brocade box effortlessly and returns to the sea of blood in the excited reaction of the soul of Xianlong's sword. Sword spirit, there is no dark fog here. Can the ghost be awakened through the dark stone? When he came to the water, Yi Tian asked directly. According to my feeling, it should be okay to use the ghost stone, but the problem is that this method requires a large number of ghost stones, and the speed is slow, because now my soul power is still very weak. The voice of the soul of Xianlong's sword rings again in Yi Tian's mind. However, I now agree with the master to enhance the soul power by swallowing the blood spirits of mayflies. Just after entering the sea of blood, the blood spirits of mayflies came into the body. I seem to feel that this kind of blood spirits of mayflies is a great nourishing tonic. If I can absorb enough blood spirits of mayflies, my soul power will have a qualitative breakthrough. The key is whether the master can get rid of the cruel factors in the blood soul of mayfly. Without waiting for Yi Tian to say anything, Xianlong Jinling continued to say. There's no problem with that, I can promise. Let's start as soon as possible. Just now, after entering the water, I found that the blood spirits of mayflies here are far more powerful than those in other blood sea waters. Fortunately, most of the blood columns were closed before, otherwise these powerful blood spirits of mayflies would have to be devoured by the netherworld smelling speech, Yi Tian said happily in his heart. Killing the underworld doesn't mean he will be safe. Outside the boundary of Tsangming Kingdom, the underworld practitioners in the Ghost Kingdom will certainly not let go of themselves, and the Yupu monks in the 8th sects will certainly not let go of themselves. At present, before the Tsangming world is closed and he is not transmitted, there is only one thing he needs to do, that is to improve his strength as soon as possible. Of course, the strength of the fierce soldier flying sword is also one of his own strength. After a little meditation, Yi Tian's idea entangles the ring of spirit beast. The next moment, his eyes are bright, and a wire ant appears out of thin air. Sure enough, it is. The underworld was destroyed, the mysterious power disappeared, and the ring of spirit beast was able to be opened. I just don't know if the closing time of Tsangming Kingdom will be affected. Yi Tian murmured a few times, and his mind moved. a magic weapon cave appeared out of thin air.
With the door closed, all the 100 dead people in the Golden Elixir realm were called out.
See Longmen, Holy Sun.
When these people came out and saw the boundless sea of blood, they were not only a little surprised, but this kind of astonishment disappeared in a flash. They bowed to Yi Tian and saluted each other. Their voices were very loud, and each one was full of zhongqi. Yi Tian's eyes glided one by one from everyone, and he could not help nodding.
Finally, he said with a smile, your cultivation is good. At least 70% of you have entered the Golden Elixir realm.
You can coagulate Yuanying and break through Yuanying realm at any time.
The Sage Sun is as smart as a torch.
To tell you the truth, he has been practicing in the magic cave with twice the speed of time.
We can really break through the Yuanying realm.
But on the way to the Earth Star, some space passages do not allow Yuanying monks to pass through, so we all bear it and dare not break through.
However, in this way, the foundation of our Jindan realm will be very solid, and the chances of breaking through Yuanying realm will be greater. Moreover, once we enter Yuanying realm, our strength will be stronger than ordinary Yuanying realm.
One of the dead men arched his hand.
What a dare not break through to Yuanying. I appreciate your confidence. Now I'd like to announce a piece of good news. If you have any ability, just use it.
If you can break through Yuanying, try your best.
Yi has found a way to take you through the space channel.
Yi Tian heard the speech and said with a laugh.
Really, that's really great.
In this way, even if you break through the Yuanying realm, you can follow Xingzi to the Earth Star, and you won't be left by Xingzi halfway.
The dead man said with a happy look. Yes, it's not too late.
Next, you can practice to your heart's content, to Yuanying realm, to Huashan realm, and to Yupu realm. However, next, there are still some things to be done, which need to be completed as soon as possible.
Yi Tian nodded slightly. Son of God, if you have a destiny, don't dare not follow it.
100 of the dead responded in unison again.
Xingzi, we are all very curious, what method can we use to pass through those extremely unstable space channels? Isn't it the practice of psychics? The voice falls, the dead person some uneasily asks away.
Yi Tian shook his head with a smile and said, nature won't let you practice spiritualism, but there is a kind of precious natural material and land treasure here, named Huafan stone.
As long as you put enough Huafan stone in the magic weapon cave, you can close your whole body's mana. Just like a mortal, nature won't have any influence on the space channel. There is such a magic stone.
The dead man could not help sighing. I'll take you to see Huafan stone when we're done here.
With these words, Yi Tian gestured, and the dense rings of Shumi appeared beside him. Then the mana moved and flew to the 100 dead men.
The dead men took it by hand, and each of them almost got 3 or 5 Shumi commandments.
Yi Tianchao pointed to the red seawater and said, these are empty su mitzvah, full of seawater. This time, the dead didn't ask why.
They scattered around with Shumi commandment. A red water column rose out of thin air and poured into Shumi commandment. In more than an hour, all the 400 or 500 Shumi commandments were filled with red seawater and sent back to Yi Tian. Put away those Shumi commandments, Yi Tian let all the dead return to the cave, also take back the magic weapon cave, and then Yuan Tianyan Zhaoche checked around again. He decided that all the Pluto flowers and soulman he had seen before had disappeared. He then steered Dun Tiansuo back along the original road.
According to his estimation, both the Pluto flowers and soulman should have been consumed by the mixed world Pluto. Fortunately, he came in time. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the lotus root of Sancheng and Sancher will no longer exist. Dun Tiansuo flew at a high speed, turned into a flash of light, and soon left the Sea of Blood and returned to the Baigu Mound area. Yi Tian did not stay here and continued to fly forward. Passing through Baigu Hill, the front is a black desert composed of Huafan stones. Stop at the edge of the black desert and Dun Tiansuo falls to the ground. Yi Tian takes out the magic weapon cave again and releases the dead. Feel the Huafan stone. Yi Tian points to the black desert. Seeing the vast black desert, hundreds of dead men flew forward in a flash, but fell down when they entered the desert. It's amazing. I can't even exert half of my mana.
A dead man held a handful of Huafan stone in his hand and looked at it carefully. Other dead men were also full of curiosity, observing and feeling. Well, what we need to do now is to take away these Huafan stones as much as possible, and take as much as we can.
Yi Tian didn't delay, he said quickly. Son of Dragon's Gate, our Shumi ring can't be opened, we can't use magic power, and we can't take it away at all.
One of the dead tried and said in a loud voice. Yi Tian burst out laughing. I said that there is a way to let you pretend to go. Come here quickly. With these words, Yi Tian summoned 72 puppets to take off their precious clothes and give them to the 72 dead men. Even Yi Tian took off his precious clothes and gave them to a dead man. Most of the dead men went through this kind of treasure clothes made of Xianin stone. At this time, Yi Tian took them out again. They had some guesses in their hearts. They changed into treasure clothes one after another and went to the Black Desert for a try. As they expected, the mana was no longer closed and could be used freely. This time, Yi Tian took out almost all the empty Shumi commandments, nearly 5,000, and gave them to the 73 dead men who were dressed in treasure clothes. Even though he didn't think it was enough, he took out more than 100 Shumi commandments which he had seized from the friars of the 8 sects and handed them to the other 17 dead men. They were asked to sort them out and make room for empty Shumi commandments to smash into the stone. Yi Tian had installed some before, but because Huafan stone was left by Sui Wang, he didn't take too much in order to suppress the ghost of Hades. Now the mixed world underworld has been killed, and then take the stone. Yi Tian has no obstacles in his heart. Everyone is busy on one side, but Yi Tian takes out the time tower with a gesture and goes in. Bit by bit, one day later, Yi Tian walked out of the time tower again. At this time, the dead are still tirelessly collecting Huafan stone from Shumi commandment, because Yi Tian has prepared too many Shumi commandments, and it is not a small project to fill them all.
Yi Tian looked at it briefly.
In order not to influence each other, the 73 dead men in treasure clothes had been scattered to hundreds of miles, and each had his own action. In the Black Desert, which was originally relatively flat, deep pits appeared one by one, which were continuous and could not be seen at a glance, showing how many Huafan stones had been collected by the dead. After a few eyes, Yi Tian doesn't care about collecting Huafan stone. He takes out a piece of Shumi ring filled with red seawater. Then he moves his hand. A newly refined pill appears between his fingers. With a flash of green light, the pill is sent into Shumi ring's seawater. Sword Spirit, elixir is purifying the evil spirit of Mayfly Blood Soul. You can enter it and devour Mayfly Blood Soul in the purified area. All at the Master's command. The Purple Cloud Dragon Sword Spirit, who has fused the new ghost and revived the ghost by absorbing the dark stone in the cave, excitedly agrees.
Then, under Yi Tian's operation, he entered the Shumi commandment.
Next, Yi Tian again took out a red sea full of Shumi ring, as before, also put in a pill. Then the second, the third, and the 8 full of red water, Yi Tian put in a pill. A moment later, about 100 puppets of each Shumi ring were sent in by Yi Tian. Do all this well, Yi Tian returns to the time and space tower again. This time, he began to practice wholeheartedly.
Time goes by day. In a flash, more than a month has passed.
For more than a month, the dead who collected Huafan stone have already retired and entered the magic cave to practice. They not only filled all the Shumi commandments that Yi Tian took out, but also filled many of them.
For Yi Tian, this is an extra gain.
In his future plans, this kind of Huafan stone must be on the stage and play an important role. For more than a month, the fierce swords and puppets that devour the blood souls of mayflies in the Red Sea have all been successful. The speed and strength of the fierce soldier's flying sword have been greatly increased again, which can be compared before flying far away.
However, by absorbing the amount of mayfly's blood soul, the soul power of those martial spirit puppets in the later period of Yuanying has been greatly enhanced.
The fighting power of the martial spirit puppets has reached the peak of Yuanying, which is also beyond the expectation of the former martial spirit puppets. On this day, Yi Tian finally came out of the Tower of Time and Space after the White Bone Mound, where Yi Tian had not been seen for a long time. A greeting, next to the magic weapon in the Cave of the Dead, also appeared. Yi Tian looked around at the 100 dead, and could not help nodding. Yes, nearly half of them broke through to Yuanying.
It's all given by the Holy Son of Longmen.
If we don't have the magic cave with twice the speed of time and the elixir given by the Holy Sun, we must still be wandering in the golden elixir realm. One of the dead said excitedly that the monks who didn't enter Yuanyingjing didn't know how powerful they were.
Once they entered Yuanyingjing, their mood was indescribable. Longmen Xingzi, you? The man said here, smile a convergence, looking at Yi Tian, said in dismay, the sun has condensed the golden elixir, Jin into the golden elixir realm? Yes, you've all reached Yuanying realm. As a holy sun, how can I stay in Longmen realm all the time?
This time I call you out to arrange the affairs after the closure of Sangming Kingdom. There are a lot of enemies outside, especially many great friars in Yupu Kingdom, who want the life of your Dragon's Gate Saint Son.
We have to make some response.
After Yi Tiandao's intention of calling all the people together, he began to decorate. Has been arranged for more than 2 hours, Yi Genius can think of the situation all told once. Immediately, Yi Tian asked the people to return to the magic cave again to continue their cultivation. With an idea, he put away the magic cave and the time and space tower. The next moment, an irregular piece of ice appeared in his hand.
It's the ice lotus.
Visible to the naked eye, the incomplete flowers and leaves inside the ice have recovered as before, and seem to be a little bigger than before. Just 2 days ago, when Yi Tian was checking in the time and space tower, there was still a part of the flower and leaf that had not been repaired.
Unexpectedly, in just a few days, it was as good as before.
Using the 5 element beads again, Yi Tian took down a small leaf and put it into his mouth.
That wonderful feeling reappeared.
Yi Tian only felt that his soul power was constantly increasing, and the scope of his mind was constantly expanding.
However, this process is relatively short, far less lasting than the first time taking Ice Lotus. It seems that the most effective is the first time.
Even so, when the increase of divine thoughts stopped, Yi Tian felt that his divine thoughts were strong enough to cover the surrounding area of 14,000 li. This kind of idea has reached the level of the late Yuanying realm, which does not match the state of the early Jindan realm. In the time and space tower, he used all kinds of natural materials and treasures, even the most precious washing Feitian ginseng, and finally condensed into a golden elixir, thus making a rapid breakthrough.
This is the first time that Yi Tian felt so powerful after his rebirth. I'll see my master.
Heir. Congratulations to my master for entering the golden elixir realm.
The next moment, Yi Tian takes out the magic weapon cave again and goes in.
Xianrun sees Yi Tian and stands up in a hurry, and soon discovers the change of Yi Tian.
It's just the golden elixir realm. It's no big deal. You're not bad either.
You've already reached the peak of the spirit transforming realm. In time, there should be no problem for the great friar to break through the Jade Pu realm. Yi Tian said lightly, and then glanced at the Xianrun whose breath had changed.
The improvement of Xianrun's realm makes Yi Tian very happy.
In this team, the highest realm is Xianrun. The improvement of the highest combat effectiveness represents the improvement of the combat effectiveness of the whole team. In particular, many people, including themselves, have improved their realm and solved the problem of crossing the space channel.
How to say, it is a great joy. It's all thanks to the master, but I don't know if I can enter Yupu smoothly in the future?
Xianrun went back in a regular way, but it was obvious that Yi Tian's words had already stimulated him. When he heard the words of Jin entering Yupu, his heart could not help but be excited and full of desire.
Yi Tian naturally knew Xianrun's meaning. He said with a smile, your performance was good before. I will do what I promised you. When you reach the Yupu realm, I will refine pills for you and instruct you to attack Yupu realm. Thank you, master.
Xianrun bows to Yi Tian in a hurry.
Yi Tian waved his hand and said, that's the future. We are likely to face some difficulties in the near future. There are several points you should remember. Half an hour later, Yi Tian comes out of the magic cave and then cleans up. Xianrun's magic cave becomes smaller and disappears.
At this time, compared with the time when Yi Tian came in, there was no difference in the Tsungming world. This situation made Yi Tian unable to judge how much time was left before the closure of the Tsungming world. However, after being shut down in the time and space tower for more than a month, the powder in his body has been completely dissolved, and he can freely perform the hidden killing technique, which makes him a little more confident in the face of the great monks of Yupu realm who are chasing him after the closure of Tsangming realm. After pondering for a moment, Yi Tian released his fierce sword and stepped on it.
A streamer flew up and disappeared in the sky.
After a short time, the fierce soldier's flying sword stopped behind the white bone mound, and Yi Tian made a gesture. More than a dozen martial spirit puppets gathered here were sent into the bloody sea of Shumi Ring. As a result, the fierce swordsman fled again and went to several places one after another.
Yi Tian collected more than 30 puppets in succession.
These martial spirit puppets are gathered in different places according to Yi Tian's instructions.
Now it's time to take them back.
He has recovered all the martial spirit puppets he can contact. After a rough calculation, there are more than 30 martial spirit puppets that have not been recovered, some of which are sent by him to protect many Alliance disciples, but the total number is only 17 of 8. There should be more than a dozen puppets lost contact.
Some of them should be in the boundary of Baigu Tsangming. As for what happened, Yi Tian doesn't know now. Yi Tian is very satisfied with taking back so many worthy puppets. At this time, he opened his mind and covered the area of more than 10,000 li. The fierce soldier's flying sword once again flew away in the distance with a flash of white light. It didn't take long to cross the black desert formed by Huafan stone and come to the edge of the Sea of Blood, that is, the edge of this big island. Here comes the leader. More than 100 Alliance friars gathered here cheered in unison. Brother Yi Tian, how can you fly in this bird desert? Can you use mana?
In the crowd, Najiak, the barbarian prince, stood in the front and saw Yi Tian fall down.
He asked in surprise.
Not only him, but also all the Alliance friars were surprised.
Prince, are we not lying? The leader of the Alliance is not limited by the Black Desert. He can use mana. All of you don't believe that Kutai is a barbarian warrior who never tells lies. At this time, Kutai, who Yi Tian had met in the Black Desert, came to him. Beside him was Hera, who worshipped Yi Tian. Kutai said and gestured. He took out a martial spirit puppet and put it in front of Yi Tian. The leader of the Alliance is really powerful. Even the white bones and skeletons took the initiative to send the martial spirit puppet back. Now that the leader of the Alliance is back, Wanbi will give it back to the leader of the Alliance. And these? Najiak got out of his way, and the people behind him also flashed to both sides, revealing the puppets left behind by Yi Tian. Yi Tian took a look at it, gestured continuously, and sent all the martial spirit puppets to Shumi Ring with red seawater. Now it's basically safe here, and the ghost cultivation has been basically killed, even if there are some people who have escaped the net. You are here to have a good rest. Naji and I have something to do. With these words, Yi Tian waved to Najiak. Although he is a barbarian prince, at this moment, Najiak is full of pride to be treated by Yi Tian. Seeing Yi Tian's gesture, he walks over with his head high and follows Yi Tian to the distance. Elder brother Yi Tian, if you have anything, just tell me. Others call you the leader of the Alliance, but I will recognize you as the elder brother. If you need me, I will go through fire and water. As he walked, Najiak said gruffly. Naji, I want to know something about the passage to the Holy Spirit realm in the Wildland. It may involve some secrets of the barbarians. Would you please tell me? Yi Tian put his hand on Najiak's shoulder and said. Brother Yi Tian wants to leave Timon Lingyu for a while? Asked Najiak, stopping. Yi Tian nodded slightly. I have this plan, and I will leave for a long time. Najiak showed a kind of reluctant look in his eyes and said, we barbarians worship warriors most. Big heroes like elder brother Yi Tian are unique among barbarians. I originally wanted to invite elder brother Yi Tian to be a guest in the wilderness, so that the barbarian people would be lucky to see elder brother Yi Tian. But I also know that the situation outside is not very optimistic. The cause of all this is that brother Yi Tian wants to save 8 of us. If Yi Tian wants to leave Timon Spirit Realm, Najiak will give his full help. The space passage is in the eye of the storm in the Wild Devil Forest, where there is a tribe called Lunsu, and no one can get close to it at ordinary times. But brother Yi Tian wants to use it. I can take you there. My flying speed is slow. When brother Yi Tian wants to go, he will send me to the magic cave and take me with him.
Najiak said, squatting on the ground, began to draw a topographic map on the broken black stone, and explained the location of the so-called Eye of the Storm to Yi Tian bit by bit.
It was not until more than half an hour later that Najiak stood up.
At this time, Yi Tian had already understood the wild terrain in his heart. It's just that the wildness is beyond his imagination. It's definitely a short distance to reach the Eye of the Storm.
Naji, go into the magic cave now.
I don't know when the transmission will start.
Once I return to the upper Sangming world, the situation will be very complicated.
And the restriction of facing the high-level monks should have disappeared. As soon as you go out, you may have to face the pursuit of the 8 sects and the cultivation of the ghost world.
Leaf Day tidies up a move, released a magic weapon cave, say. Okay, everything is up to Brother Yi Tian. Najiak gave a little thought and readily agreed.
While they were talking, the forbidden system of the cave was opened, and a beautiful woman came out. It was Duan Feishue who was sent in by Yi Tian in the White Bone Songming Kingdom.
Here. Out of the magic cave, the woman looked at the surrounding environment, and then looked at Yi Tian suspiciously. Yi Dao Yu, where is this place? Yi Tian nodded slightly and said, this is the Songming world after opening. Now there is no danger. Sangming Kingdom should be closed in the near future. All the people here will be sent back. At that time, I will be pursued by many great monks in Yupu Kingdom. If I have any problems, you will be trapped in the magic cave, or become a prisoner of the 8 sects or even the Ghost Kingdom. So you can only be released here. After being sent out, the people of Duanjian Villa will naturally protect you. What can I do for Yi Dao Yu?
The old ancestor of the Duan family is also a great monk in Yupu realm. I will ask him to give a helping hand to the Taoist friends at that time.
Hearing Yi Tian's words, Duan Feishue's face changed a lot of colors, and finally said with some worry.
Yi Tian shook his head and said, when Sangming Kingdom is closed, the scene will be extremely chaotic, and I believe that during this period, the Ghost Kingdom and the 8 sects are well prepared.
1 or 2 great friars in Yupu can't do much. You can protect yourself in the chaos. Ah! Yi Dao Yu, your accomplishments?
Duan Feishue just wanted to say something more, suddenly felt the breath of Yi Tian's body, his face changed and said. He clearly remembers that Yi Tian's cultivation realm in the Baigut Sangming Kingdom was in the late stage of Longmen realm, but now from the perspective of breath, Yi Tian has crossed the peak of Longmen realm and reached the cultivation realm of Golden Elixir realm, and among the friars in the early stage of Golden Elixir realm, Yi Tian's breath is also very strong.
A slight breakthrough. Yi Tian nods slightly and says a word with indifference. Then he waves to Najiak. Najiak understands and walks into the cave. Then, in Duan Feishue's astonished eyes, Yi Tian puts away the magic weapon, flies into the Black Desert, takes out the Time and Space Tower, and enters it. Time passed bit by bit.
About 5 or 6 days later, Yi Tian, who was practicing in the Time and Space Tower, suddenly stood up and came out. At this time, the boundary of Sangming changed obviously compared with before. Whether it's the Black Desert or the Bloody Sea, all directions of the space begin to show dim light, and the light is more and more intense, more and more dazzling.
Is Sangming Kingdom going to be closed soon?
Yi Tian murmured, motioned, quickly folded up the spacetime tower, moved, released the fierce sword, and fled to the depth of the Black Desert. I saw the fierce sword flash, has disappeared in all the line of sight. At a certain moment in the flight, Yi Tian's body suddenly disappeared out of thin air, and his fierce sword disappeared. At this time, he has cast the hidden kill technique and is in the invisible state. The surrounding situation is more and more bright. At the same time, a strong suction appears out of thin air. Yi Tian, who is far away from the crowd, suddenly feels that he is wrapped by this powerful force, and a dazzling light suddenly explodes around him, which makes people unable to open their eyes. The next moment, the suction suddenly increased. Yi Tian felt a strong sense of weightlessness appeared, his body suddenly seemed to pass through the space channel, flying out of thin air. When that power suddenly disappeared, that kind of strong light no longer existed. At this time, the scene immediately made Yi Tian realize that he was back in the White Bone Songming world. All around is still endless bones, bones on the ground, and even in the sky, there are secret people. There are people from 8 sects, and there are endless ghost cultivation. On the other hand, there are many strong barbarians. In addition, he saw the figure of 27 great friars from small sections.
Sure enough, as I expected, when the mysterious power disappeared, the white-boned Songming kingdom no longer restricted the existence of high-level monks. Yi Tian naturally knows what the purpose of these people is. I'm afraid more people come for their own sake than the disciples of our sect. The people who were sent back from all around, except themselves, had barbarian and human friars in all parts of Songming kingdom. The appearance of the figure immediately made the scene chaotic. Taking advantage of the instant chaos, Yi Tian spreads his heavenly wings and flies to the south with 2 pairs of wings behind him. The position he sent back was not in the center of Songming kingdom, but in the south. According to Yi Tian's current cultivation, the distance that he can fly out by using his heavenly wings once is far more than before. However, at this time, we can't let go of the limit speed, because there are too many people here. In addition to countless Terran friars, even the army of the underworld has millions, which seems to occupy the whole sky. The number of Terran friars is relatively small, but the total is no less than 200,000 or 300,000. Most of them are barbarian warriors.
Almost the barbarians and the ghost world occupy 2 large areas in the air. Originally, Yi Tian had thought that the ghost world and the 8 sects would be prepared, but unexpectedly, they would be so ceremoniously prepared. This situation is no longer suitable for the use of Tian Linji. As soon as Yi Tianlu observes the situation around him, his body suddenly sinks. In the confusion, he urges the 5 element beads and escapes into the white bone underground. Later, he released the fierce sword and urged the 5 elements to fly south. Another great benefit of breaking through the golden elixir realm is that the time to activate the 5 element beads is longer after the mana is greatly increased. With his current mana strength, it's no problem to activate the 5 element beads in a small range. In this period of time, with the speed of fierce soldiers flying swords, they were able to break out of the boundary of Songming. However, there are many arrangements not only within the boundary of Songming, but also outside the boundary of Songming. A moment later, Yuan Tian's eyes were shining, and he saw that the number of ghost cultivation outside the boundary of Songming was still extremely large, and there was also a powerful Buddha in it. It seems that the ghost repair in the ghost world has already known about the destruction of the Ghost King's soul. He has to kill himself. The improvement of his realm provides more possibilities for his escape, but it is impossible to fight with those enemies. What's more, he also saw that the great friars of Yupujing and the 8 sects of Songming were still looking for themselves. As long as the location is exposed, maybe the great friars of Yupu will come. Now his advantage is occult killing, and the friars of the 8 sects feel that they have been given the powder to break the occult art, and it is impossible to break it in just 2 months. So, it's easy to ignore stealth. If you reveal that you can be invisible, it will be a very troublesome thing for the other party to pursue and kill you. In the blink of an eye, Yi Tian flies thousands of miles away from the ground. At this position, the meditation in the sky has gradually become rare. But Yi Tian has reached the last moment when he uses the 5 element bead. He takes out a pill to restore his mana and sends it to the entrance. The mana of the 5 element bead is suddenly collected. Immediately, he looked into the sky, suddenly a coagulation. Under the light of Yuan Tian's eye, he suddenly saw the figure of a big bird in the sky. It was the golden eye god carving that could see through the invisibility. On the other hand, it is the figure of a woman. Afterlife. Yi Tiangang just saw the golden eye god carving, but he couldn't help looking at it. From what he saw, the golden eye god carving suddenly changed from its leisurely state in the sky and dived down to himself. It is obvious that the golden eye god eagle has found himself in the invisibility. Yi Tian's eyes flashed with cold light, and a layer of magic shield was gathered on his body, which covered his whole body, and his body rushed down to the ground. At the moment when he rushed out of the ground, boundless white powder fell from the air. But Yi Tian's back 2 pairs of heavenly wings suddenly one fan, already flew to the horizon, another fan, left the golden eye god carving far behind. Then, his body was shocked, and a layer of mana shield appeared on his body again, replacing the original shield. Fortunately, he made preparations ahead of time. He had a shield to protect his body. All the powder scattered in the sky was caught by the shield, and he didn't touch half of it. Naturally, this kind of powder, which can break the stealth effect, can't help him anymore.
Ga.
In the distance, the four-step golden eye eagle made a loud call and flew towards Tian's direction again. The gesture of Empress Hades on the back of the golden carving moves. A piece of golden light is shining towards Tian's position. Under the eye of Yuan Tian, Tian is surprised to find that it is a rapidly enlarged golden bone.
If Tian didn't dodge fast enough, he would have been hit by the bone. Tian frowned. In a flash, a magic cave appeared from his side. After the light was magnified, a figure flew out of it. Take this man.
Kill the golden eye. Tian points to the golden eye god carving that flies close quickly. Xianran's hand is shining white, and Tian Luonet has been offered sacrifices.
The white light of Tian Luonet is so fast that it is almost in the blink of an eye.
The white light falls in the netherworld, and the fourth-level golden eye eagle is bound by Tian Luonet, and even has no time to react.
Xianran's Tian Luonet has been practiced very skillfully.
After netting the target, his gesture moves, and the golden eye statue and the Empress of the Underworld are quickly pulled over.
Before reaching Xianran's side, I saw a black shadow floating out of the woman's body and flying away quickly. Don't chase.
Kill the golden eye and enter the cave. Xianran just want to catch up with the ghost body, but Tian is a big drink to stop Xianran action. At the moment, Xianran showed absolute obedience, almost without any hesitation. He killed the four-level divine carving with one sword, then put away the Tian Luonet, and flashed into the magic cave again. Even the woman who was possessed by the underworld didn't care. Tian continuously shrinks the magic weapon cave, and then a magic power rolls around the woman's body and sends it into the spirit beast ring. After the Empress Hades leaves this woman's body, Tian unexpectedly discovers that this nun, who is regarded as a living bone, still has breath. At this moment, he naturally can't ignore it. In less than a breath, Tian had finished his work. At the next moment, when more than 10 figures suddenly appeared in the sky, they disappeared from the original place again. If he hadn't found that there was a great friar in Yupu realm in the sky before, he would never have let go of that afterlife.
It's just that there's chaos everywhere and there's not much opportunity left for him.
Tian, who continuously flapped the wings of the heavenly spirit behind him, found that most of the newly arrived great friars were Mingzuns from the ghost world, the rest were friars from the 8 sects, the barbarian great friars and the ancestors of the 20 sections. As soon as these people appeared, there was another war, and the roar was incessant, shaking the world.
This sentiment, Yi Mao wrote down. Tian said silently in his heart and continued to fly south.
At this time, there was no room for him to intervene in the war.
Xianran used Tian Luonet once, but he didn't have much mana anymore. His purpose was to get rid of the last golden eye eagle. Now that the threat had been removed, he didn't care about anything else. As soon as he was sent to Sangming Kingdom, he saw that the barbarians and the great friars of Yupijing and the 27 sects were in a tit-for-tat confrontation with the friars of the Ghost Kingdom and the 8 sections. It's obvious that there must be a mind to entangle each other and let themselves out, even though those people don't find their position. But this feeling, he actually remembered in the heart. After all, even if he entered the Golden Elixir realm, his real strength was far from that of the monks who lived in the Jade and Jade realm and the Spirit realm. Although the speed of Tian Linji is fast, it still costs a lot of mana when it is used in high frequency. Tian, who uses Tian Linji to fly thousands of miles away and feels that the mana cost is serious, puts away the Tian Linji and controls the fierce sword to continue to fly away. At this time, Tian's mind has been converged, and he doesn't want to be sensed by his enemy's great friar Yupu. In the next few days, Tian can occasionally see in the sky the great friar of Yupujing, who has 8 sects, and the figure of Mingzuan in the Ghost Kingdom. These people are just showing up, feeling, and then leaving soon. Under the deliberately hidden breath of Tian, they naturally didn't find the slightest thing, and every time they were in danger. Because previously, Najiak described in detail the wild terrain of Tian, especially some landmark areas. Tian was already familiar with it, and he didn't go a wrong way all the way south. Later, we could not see the figure of the great friar of Yupujing in the sky. On the contrary, the strong barbarians appeared more often. He even saw the figure of Man Wang Jinghong.
In order to ensure that his whereabouts are not exposed, even if only the barbarians appear, he does not reveal his body. Who knows if the people of the eighth sex will cover the barbarians with their thoughts? In this case, Yi Tianqin went on his way, and finally came to the boundless forest more than 20 days later. The trees here are tall and stout, and the color is dark green. At first glance, they look like black. Many trees are tens of feet high, and only a dozen people can embrace them. At first glance, they don't know how many years of virgin forest they have been growing. This is what Najiak called the Devil Forest. The teleportation array leading to the Holy Spirit realm is in the middle of the Devil Forest. Here, Yi Tian took a long breath and continued to drive the fierce sword toward the deep forest. 3 days later, a faint fog began to appear in the Devil's Forest. With his deepening, the fog became thicker and thicker. Finally, after flying for another half a day, a barbarian tribe with countless wooden houses appeared in front of him. Yi Tian didn't lose his body. He went straight through this big tribe and came to the center of the tribe. There were no trees in sight. There was a huge underground grotto, where the wind and clouds were surging and thick clouds were swirling, forming a vortex. It looked very terrible. Around the grottos, hidden in thick clouds, there are 8 thick iron ropes, which extend to the grottos. Yi Tianyuan looked into the grottos and found a strange-looking monster tied to the end of each iron rope. He felt it from the breath and found that he had a 6-level realm, crouching in the grottos on the wall of the grottos. It seems to be the guardian monster of the Eye of the Storm. If you look down again, you can't see the end of the grottos, as if there is no bottom. Take back your eyes. Yi Tian slightly ponders, shows his figure, releases the magic weapon cave, and releases Najiak from inside. Brother Yi Tian, yes, this is the Eye of the Storm. I didn't expect you to find it so quickly. Najiak glanced at the surroundings and said in surprise. See Prince Shock. Yi Tian did not speak. A tall barbarian warrior suddenly fell from the sky. Leader Lozan, restrain the guard beast of the tribe. My elder brother is going to the Holy Spirit realm from here. Najiak nodded at the barbarian warrior. Yes, Prince. The barbarian warrior nodded his head and agreed without saying a word. Then a few whimpers came into the cave. Yi Tian nodded to Najiak, gestured, took out the woman who was possessed by the underworld from the spirit beast ring, and slightly checked. Shock, he's still breathing, but I'm afraid it won't last long. He must be treated with special pills. I'm afraid there's only one way to die if he stays in the realm of time and spirit. And I have to leave here as soon as possible. There is no time to refine pills. Take her away temporarily, and then give treatment. If you find out the origin of this person in the future, please let me know. I will send her back in the future. Yi Tian said after giving this woman a pill. Brother Yi Tian, don't worry. It's a small matter. I will do it. Do you have anything else to tell me, elder brother? Najiak nodded and said. Tell your father that there will be some actions in the alliance with the 27 clans of the human race, the Ghost Kingdom and the 8 clans. I'm afraid there won't be many peaceful days in the future. Don't be defeated by each one. I'll come back later. At that time, it's time to eradicate the Ghost Kingdom and the 8 sections. No, someone's coming. Speaking of this, Yi Tian suddenly ends the topic in a hurry. With a gesture, he puts away the woman. The next moment, Dun Tiansua has appeared in front of him. Yi Tian stepped into Dun Tiansua, the shield suddenly opened, turned into a white light into the eyes of the storm, disappeared. In the sky, several aura ripples appeared out of thin air. The ancestors of Duan family, Manwan, the old women of Qingyun sect, and several Yupujing friars of 8 sects came one after another. Including Gu Zheng'an, the ancestor of Luoshan. Most of the others are barbarian warriors in Yupu. You dare to let Yi Tian go? The old woman of Qingyun sect looks at the cloud whirlpool that seems to have no change in the eye of the storm, points to Najiak and the tribal leader Lozan, and cuts them with a sword light. Boom! With a loud noise, the big stick in Manwang's hand had been put out, and it was on the flying sword in a flash. Many barbarian Yupujing strongmen took part in the attack one after another, including the Broken Sword Villa and the Yupujing friars of the 27 sects, who also joined the siege and attacked the people of the 8 sections. Here, the barbarians and the Yupujing friars of the 27th sect had an obvious advantage. The old woman and several Yupujing friars of the Batazongmen resisted a few times and hurried away.
You guard the eye of the storm. No one from the 8 sects is allowed to enter here.
The King of Man said to the 2 strong men in Yupu, and then said to the others, Dear Taoist friends, I'm going to meet the barbarian warriors.
Excuse me for a moment. We are going to meet our disciples, too.
When the Man King finished, the ancestors of the Duan family and others also said one after another and left here.
The last one to leave is Gu Zhengyan, the ancestor of Luo Shan.
He takes a deep look at the eye of the storm. After pondering for a moment, his figure disappears from here. Dun Tiansuo circled in the strong cyclone and went deep into the eyes of the storm.
It was like a boat in the stormy waves.
There was no room for rotation, but he just let the strong suction fall down to the boundless black hole. The strong space-squeezing force made Dun Tiansuo's shield constantly deform and creak, as if it could break at any time.
However, Dun Tiansuo's shield did not break after all.
It was just shuttling through the endless space tunnel. All around is a dark color, no light, no scenery, there is only a black chaotic air mass vaguely visible through the source eye, as if endless. I don't know how long it took. At last, the shield of Dun Tiansuo flew away from the space channel in a sudden light. Through the transparent shield, Tian saw the scene in front of him.
Dun Tiansuo rushed to the high altitude from a huge whirlpool.
Under the high altitude, there was vast sea water everywhere, and there was no boundary. The place where Dun Tiansuo flew out was like a leak from the bottom of the sea. The endless sea water poured in madly, forming a huge whirlpool with a radius of tens of miles, which looked extremely terrible. I don't know where all the seawater has gone. Tian feels the existence of water in the space channel. He just feels the existence of water when he flies out of the vortex.
Holy Spirit Realm. A world in which the demon clan is the ruler. The strength of the demon clan is far stronger than the world of the Terran friars. There was such a record in the materials Yen Lai gave him, but it was only a few words, not detailed. As for where the space passage from the Holy Spirit Realm to the next Spirit Realm is, Yen Lai didn't mention it in his jade slips. In the middle of the sky shuttle, Tian watched and looked around. He opened his mind and covered the circle about 15,000 miles to see it. Then he turned to escape and flew away in a direction. Within the scope of the divine mind, there is a vast sea area. Occasionally, you can see some big or small islands. He went to the nearest island, which is only 1,000 miles away. In a short time, Dun Tiansuo fell on the island with luxuriant trees. After a careful inspection, except for some low-level spirit insects such as snakes and insects, no friars were found. Those spirit insects are only the first and second level realm.
They are the weakest spirit insects.
Tian doesn't care.
The shadowless snake, blood mantis and other spirit insects are released to protect the environment.
Tian doesn't even escape from Tiansuo.
With a gesture, the beautiful woman who was possessed by the underworld appears in front of her knees. This person's state has changed radically from that before crossing the space channel. Originally this feminine if gossamer, pale, only slightly undulating chest, proved that she is still alive.
But after taking Tian's pills, the breath has become stronger, the complexion is ruddy, and the chest undulation is much more obvious than before. But always eyes closed, long eyelashes together, as if sleeping in general. Tian Yuan looked at the girl from the sky.
The first layer is clothes. Just skip the second layer of skin, swept one eye, continue to go deep. All the way to the viscera, Tian began to observe himself.
That's right. It's the same as what I judged before.
Heart failure, lung failure, liver failure, kidney failure.
In a word, the condition of each organ is very bad.
Brain also because of the afterlife control too long by a serious trauma, if not meet their own, I'm afraid she cannot endure a month, will die. After a little meditation, Tian took out a magic weapon cave medicine garden, collected some spiritual materials with excellent growth and abundant aura, went back to Dun Tiansuo, and took out some precious spiritual materials from Shumi commandment. Next, the heaven and earth furnace has appeared in his hands. The three-color original spirit fire was called out and baked on the heaven and earth stove, and then each spirit wood was sent into the Dan stove.
At a certain moment, Tian took out another drop of Zhaohua liquid and put it into the Dan furnace.
3 or 4 hours later, Danxiang became more and more strong, but similarly, the thick clouds in the sky also gathered like surging clouds, and soon covered the whole sky.
Rob the cloud. The whole Holy Spirit realm is the same as the Wild Spirit realm. If you can easily refine 8 pills, you will be able to make a robbery cloud? Why is it so difficult to keep a low profile? In the furnace of heaven and earth, 4 8-grade pills are coagulating, and it's not time to collect the pills. Moreover, this process can only be carried out step by step. If you want to simplify some processes, it can also become pills, but the effect will be greatly reduced. There is no way. Tian doesn't want to waste such precious spirit material.
While he continues to refine pills, he takes out the magic weapon cave and calls Xianrun out.
Leaving Xingming world, the magic weapon cave has been deliberately free to enter and leave. At this time, Tian will not easily use the spirit puppet.
Although Tian has transformed this kind of thing into the peak strength of Yuanying realm, its combat effectiveness is better than those 5-level monsters that Xianrun has mastered.
However, every move of these puppets will cost the best jade, and more than 1,000 puppets will cost a lot of jade. Unless they have to be used, these puppets can only be regarded as reserves.
Seeing the surrounding environment, Tian is refining pills, and on Dun Tiansua lies a nun who seems to be seriously injured. Xianrun's eyes are surprised, and then he respectfully stands aside.
Tian didn't say anything, and Xianrun didn't ask anything. He just opened his mind and watched around warily. I'm also surprised by the thick clouds all over the sky.
More and more lightning power gathered in the cloud, flickering in the thick clouds, as if accumulating strength to make the strongest strike. At a certain moment, there was a click, and a lot of thunder brewing down from the heavy cloud.
Tian gestured and waved his fist to the thunder. In exchange for a louder roar than just now, the thunder into the body, as if to add a nutrition to Tian's second fist again powerful to the second thunder. Then the third, the fourth. For 8 elixirs and 4 thunderbolts were melted away by Tian's hands and feet.
Not only did Tian not hurt himself at all, but he used the power of Thunderbolt to refine his body. It seemed that his body was stronger. Next to Xianrun, who saw Tianhua robbing the thunder in the whole process, he was more surprised, but he didn't say anything.
He still opened his mind and paid attention to the movement around him. The more powerful Tian is, the more it shows that his choice is not wrong. Only Tian in the golden elixir realm is so terrible. What if one day he enters the realm of Huashan and Yupu? Xianrun can't imagine. For thunder is easily resolved by Tian, and then he is injured. He moves quickly, and the cloud photographer moves continuously, grabbing all the 4 pills that are just about to fly out of the furnace. The next moment, Tian put the elixir away. With a gesture, the magic weapon Dongfu and Dun Tiansua were also included in the Shumi commandment, and then the spirit insects were quickly put into the spirit beast ring. Xianrun, invisible, follow me. With a sound, he and Xianrun almost disappeared at the same time. Master, have you found them, too? Xianrun, who followed Tian's stealth flight, was shocked again.
He knew the reason why Tian left suddenly, because more than 10,000 miles away, there were 3 monsters flying towards this side quickly. This kind of monsters that can transform into shape, at least is the 6th level cultivation. For this kind of monster, with Tian Luonet in hand, and Xianrun, who is also the 6th level golden eye god carving in more than 1,000 5th level monsters, he doesn't care. It's easy to get rid of it. So when Tian was refining pills, he didn't disturb Tian because of the appearance of those monsters. But the monster, which is about 14,000 miles away, was discovered by Tian, which shocked him. You know, this kind of mental intensity has reached the level that can only be reached in the later period of Yuanying, or even the peak of Yuanying. But the master Tian Kai just entered the golden elixir realm for the first time. This kind of strong spirit is absolutely the first person in the golden elixir realm he knows, and even the friars at the top of the golden elixir realm can't match him. Soon after they left the island, the 3 monsters had come to the island. After a look at the cloud that had quickly dissipated in the sky, a ferocious beast with feet on his head sucked his nose and said, "This matter must be reported to Lord Xiaowang."
When did the Terran appear such a powerful Dan Master? We have to pay attention to it. Otherwise, let's look for it and take it at one stroke.
Another has been to the head with 5 or 6 short tentacles of the shape of the sea demon, said with indifference. Those 2 people have already used their skills to escape.
It takes a lot of energy to find them, and we don't have enough people now. Instead of wasting time here, it's better to report the news to Lord Jiawan, or to deal with it properly.
In particular, the lower level of the Terran friar is already so powerful in alchemy. The number of friars next to him should be his elders. We can't judge what kind of attainments he has achieved.
We must let Lord Jiao know about this.
The 2-horned sea demon still insists on his opinion.
What's the contradiction? The manatee went back to report.
The tentacle and I went to deal with the 2 Terran friars.
They didn't delay each other. Maybe you haven't brought your letter. We've got it. Next to another small head, small eyes, skin color black sea demon, some disdain to say.
Well, old tortoise, you have a good nose.
Go and smell it. I hope you can succeed. I'm leaving now,
said the manatee, and it flew away like a gust of wind. Soon fly out of hundreds of miles, the island has already disappeared in sight. Under the cover of God, the companion is still around the island aimlessly looking for, it seems, using several means, also failed to work.
What 2 stupid fellows! The manatee sneered and flew on.
All of a sudden, a light burst out in front of him. The manatee was just about to dodge, but he suddenly felt stiff. His whole body seemed to be trapped by a bright net, and he couldn't move for half a minute. As soon as he wanted to send out a signal for help, he felt dark and entered a dark space.
Master, you don't have to be so troublesome. I can kill all the 3 sirens every minute.
Over the sea, the invisible Xianrun said to Yi Tian.
Yi Tian said with a smile, what's the use of killing a few sea monsters? Do you eat meat? The sea area is so big, the sea demon can't be killed. Now there's something urgent to do.
Don't make too much noise for the time being. After a while, you search the soul of the cow demon.
The news is the most important.
Yes, master. Xianrun should be no longer say, 2 people continue to fly away to a distant island. 2 or 3,000 miles away in a piece of sea, there are 2 human friars looking at the island where Yi Tian alchemy. The plundering clouds in the sky have not completely dissipated, and the signs of surging clouds are still very obvious, but there is no more thunder. In my mind, everything seems so quiet, just like the beginning of heavy rain.
Brother Liao, you ran here in a hurry to see the clouds? What's good to see?
This is the territory of the sea demon, or don't get into trouble, said a stout friar with some worry. Another friar with many wrinkles on his face shook his head and said in a soft voice, you don't understand.
The cloud you think is not good looking has a lot of mystery.
This should be the cloud of Dan Jia in legend. Only when the best Dan medicine is born, can this kind of heaven and earth anomaly appear. I've been studying Dan Dao all my life, but I haven't led to a disaster after all.
I haven't refined the best Dan medicine.
If the marvelous sea demon made this kind of elixir, our Terran would have no better life.
How can it be?
I've never heard that the sea demon can also make pills. If it's really the cloud of Dan robbery that Brother Liao said, it's also from our Terran friars. But the fat friar sneered and said firmly. Black thin friar eyes deep said, this is very strange, I still have some understanding of the Terran Dan master, can surpass my existence as rare, I really can't think of which Dan master can lead to Dan robbery cloud. What's more, it's not in line with the way of survival of the Terran friars to choose the sea demon's sphere of influence for alchemy and make so much noise.
Who would be so reckless? Brother Liao, I think it's reckless enough for us to come here. We'd better leave as soon as possible, or it will be another disaster if we are found by the sea demon.
The fat friar thought of the danger here. After that, he pulled the black and thin friar, and they left here quickly with the flying sword. Under an island, tens of thousands of meters deep, Yi Tian has built a huge space with mountain and river seals, which is enough to place 2 luxurious caves. In the space, the 2 caves are arranged in turn. When the space is enough and the cave is enough, he and Xianrun naturally occupy one and do not disturb each other. Xianran is searching for the soul of the cow demon in another cave, while Yi Tian is sitting in his cave with his knees crossed. He puts the beautiful woman on a piece of soft animal skin in front of her knee, gently pinches her chin with his fingers, and puts a newly refined 8th-grade pill into his lips. Silently observing the subtle changes of this woman after taking pills, Yi Tian's eyes can't help looking at her crystal-clear fingers. The slim and weak fingers can't help looking good, and there is a more beautiful Shumi ring on them. Slightly upon her, Leaf Day one hand is holding this female wrist, one hand is holding that Sumi ring to gently roll down. There is a strong brand of divinity on the Shumi commandment. Yi Tianlu can feel the intensity of this kind of divinity as soon as he feels it. It will never be left by the nun who has only one golden elixir in her body. It may be the queen of the underworld. In other words, the Shumi ring must be something from the afterlife. Once the matter is confirmed, Yi Tian has no mental obstacle. He pastes Sumishio on his forehead and begins to slowly remove the mental imprint on it. It still took more than half an hour for Yi Tian to achieve his goal with his current spirit intensity. Then Yi Tian made his own spirit brand with the fastest speed. The beautiful woman in front of her is getting better and better, and her internal organs are rapidly recovering under the powerful and energetic pill, but there is no sign of waking up. But waking up is just a matter of time. Yi Tian has enough confidence in his pills. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Tian Shenian enters into Shumi commandment. Hiss at the moment when the divine idea comes into Shumi, Yi Tian can't help but take a breath of cold air. The next moment, 4 crystal-clear ice coffins appear in the cave, and the temperature in the cave drops suddenly. If Yi Tian's body is not absolutely strong, he will shiver even if he wears a down jacket. One of the 4 ice coffins is empty, and the other 3 contain a gorgeous woman. They are all young and beautiful. Through the transparent ice coffin, we can see that the faces of the 3 women are equally pale and bloodless. Under the light of Yuan Tian's eyes, Yi Tian finds that although the 3 beauties are dead, there is still a thread of life in their bodies. These ice coffins are just used to keep the 3 people's gorgeous appearance. It seems that the special hobby of the Empress of the Underworld is to use the superb body and bones, but not care about the strength of the bones. These 3 beauties all have the cultivation of Jindan realm, and one of them has just entered Jindan realm. A little observation of the 3 beauties. Yi Tian palm and one of the ice coffin cover a push, bang to a sound, the coffin cover on the ground. The next moment, Yi Tian gesture move, the woman in the coffin was man attraction, slowly rising from the inside, on the ground outside the coffin. It's a pill that has just been refined. Put it into his mouth. Then the second, the third, 3 people in succession took out the ice coffin and took the pills in turn. If Duan Fei Shui is not rescued in advance, it is estimated that there should be 5 ice coffins here. The empty ice coffin was obviously used by the first beautiful woman saved. After a little inspection, Yi Tian sees that the vitality of the 3 beauties is slowly recovering. It should be okay, so he continues to look at Sumi Jie. The next moment, he gestured, and there were more than 100 puppets in the cave. Some of them are martial spirit puppets left by themselves in the world of Baigut Sangming, and some are strange ones. I don't know where the Empress of the Underworld came from. If the guess is right, it should be from Qing Yun sect. These strange martial spirit puppets are only the strength of the early Yuanying realm. They have not been transformed by themselves. They only have a drive card slot installed with the best Xianyu. Yi Tian checks it a little, and it turns out that those puppets still have their own spirit brand, but the best fairy jade has been used up. Those strange puppets with martial spirits are equipped with the best fairy jade of power, but they have not been branded with divine thoughts. It may also be that they originally had the brand of divine thoughts, but they have been erased. Yi Tian remolded the puppets of martial spirits and reinstalled them with the best fairy jade. He sent them into the Shumi commandment with blood-colored seawater to devour the blood spirits of mayflies. The strange puppet is an idea that has been brought into Zumaji. Now he doesn't need these puppets, and he doesn't want to waste his time to reform them. He even doesn't want to lay down the mark of his mind. After putting away the martial spirit puppet, Yi Tian continues to check the contents of Shumi commandment. There is a lot of space in Shumi precepts, but the objects are very simple. Besides, there is only a golden skeleton. Needless to say, this golden skeleton is the skeleton of the underworld. The divine mind locks the skeleton and applies a little mana. The next moment, the golden skeleton is taken out of Shumi ring by Tian. He was not interested in the golden appendage itself, but in the storage of the bone. Drive light to be familiar with ground to wipe off a thigh bone of soul to read imprint, leaf day got red to probe into among them.
Seeing what was inside, Tian took a breath again. All kinds of magic weapons piled up in it were obviously used by human friars. He took out a few pieces at random, and Tian identified them slightly. They were all magic weapons of Banxianbing level. Take it out again, it's still at this level. I have taken out dozens of magic weapons all the time. All the magic weapons are half immortal soldier level. You don't need to look at the rest. As a queen of the underworld, if you can keep it in her skeleton, it can only be the magic weapon of the half-immortal soldier. Judging from the appearance of these magic weapons, quite a few of them are very old. They should be many years old. They are not refined in hundreds of years. Can't it be said that the capture of innumerable years of ghost cultivation has been put here? There are as many as 50,000 or 60,000 magic weapons for the semi-immortal soldiers. Even Tian is astonished at the quantity. Soon, he calmed his mind and transferred all the magic weapons of the semi-immortal soldiers into his Shumi commandment. He still put them on himself. He was not used to using the bone storage of the underworld. Next, Tian moves again. Many of the best fairy jade was taken out by Tian continuously, and also received his own Zumitio. About 40 or 50,000 pieces of the best fairy jade, all full of aura and power, surprised Tianxin. It seems that those martial spirit puppets can still be used at a critical time. Xianyu is not a problem for the time being. I didn't expect that the Empress of the Underworld had stored so many exquisite fairy jade. When the best fairy jade was taken out, Tian saw 4 golden skeletons again, but the gold was slightly lighter than this one. It is said that there are 3 caves of cunning rabbits. The Empress of the Underworld seems to be well versed in this. Not only 4 bones attached to the body, but also 4 bones attached to the skeleton. But I'm afraid she never thought that one day, she would capture all her belongings, and she only escaped from 1 soul. Take out the 4 skeletons and put them aside. Tian doesn't pay attention to them for the time being and continues to check the items in the boneware. There are also a lot of bone artifacts, about 100 pieces, including some gold ones, but the proportion is very small. These things, Tian simply cannot use, completely ignored. Keep looking. The next moment, Tian's hands appeared 5 spirit beast ring. Tian was surprised to find this kind of thing in the afterlife. Out of curiosity, Tian immediately picked up a spirit beast ring and checked it. He found that it had the imprint of soul thought from the underworld. It seems that there must be monsters in it, otherwise there is no need for the Empress of the Underworld to recognize the Lord. Tian does not hesitate to waste his time, and begins to wear away the imprint of his mind at this time. The Underworld Queen's body and bones, who was saved by him, suddenly gave out a cry and opened his eyes. Then he turned over and sat up and looked at the surroundings. Dao Yu, don't be afraid. You are safe. Yi has saved you from the underworld. See this woman's eyes full of suspicion and fear. Tian quickly put down the hands of the spirit beast ring, warm sound comfort way. You are. The woman looked at Tian and relaxed a little. I'm Tian, a fellow human. Tian smiles and nods, trying to show a kind smile. Who am I? But immediately, this woman's words is to let Leaf Day One Lang. Who are you, don't you forget? He blurted out. The woman's eyes began to be at a loss, staring at Tian's face, but there was no focus. She murmured, it should not be forgotten. It seems that she can think of it immediately, just a little bit. After thinking about it carefully for a long time, I finally hugged my head in pain and sobbed in a low voice, who am I? I really can't remember. How can I be here? When Tian saw this, he could not help sinking in his heart. He made his own pills, and naturally he had great confidence in himself, but all the injuries in the girl's mind would naturally heal. If there are signs of amnesia, it must be because part of the person's memory has been erased by the afterlife.
To restore this girl's memory, you can have a try unless you use Pluto flower. However, you have taken Pluto flower before, and now you haven't completely recovered, so you can't use it again. Fortunately, Tian didn't worry. He patted her on the shoulder with his hand and said in a soft voice, "Think about it, can you remember anything?" Bang! When Tian patted the girl on the shoulder, the girl suddenly raised her hand and patted Tian. She drank. "Dare to be a disciple, how dare you do this?" Tian's figure flashed. Under the cross-knee state, he flew back for a moment, avoiding the woman's palm. Seeing this, the woman's face relaxed a little and said in a low voice, "Don't blame me, Taoist friends. Men and women are not compatible. I'm being rude." Tian nodded slightly. He knew that it was not his fault. He was too presumptuous. However, he just patted his shoulder. It was not a big deal. "Who are they?" The woman said no more about it and pointed to the other three gorgeous beauties lying on the ground. "Tian Dao, you are all saved by Yi Mao from the underworld. The underworld is a strong man in the Ghost Kingdom, and has supreme power in the Ghost Kingdom. 4 of you, Yi, have already taken pills. Otherwise, I'm afraid there's no chance to open your eyes again. Thank you for your help." Hearing Tian's words, the woman looked up and thought for a moment. Then she slowly took a half beat and said thanks. Then she asked, "What Taoist friends mean is that this is no longer a pretty spiritual realm?" Tian nodded happily and said, "Yes, Dao's thinking is very quick. It's really not a too wild spirit realm, but a holy spirit realm. When you left time and spirit realm, because you were being pursued by some strong people, and only Yi could cure your condition, so in a hurry, you took all the power and brought Dao Yu to the Holy Spirit realm." The woman heard speech, silently nodded, looked at the 4 ice coffins beside, and then looked at the 3 comatose women around, looked up at Tian. "This coffin has a should belong to me?" Theoretically speaking, yes, these 3 people were all rescued from the ice coffin, and you were occupied by the Empress of the Underworld. You can also understand that they were taken away, but they were not completely taken away. Tian nods and explains. "What are you going to do with us?" The woman habitually straightened her hair at the sideburns and asked. "It's not disposal, it's resettlement." Tian corrected, "We are at the bottom of an island in the sea. There is a space channel nearby that can return to the realm of time and spirit. However, it is obviously impossible to pass through the space channel with extremely strong space squeezing force based on the realm cultivation of Dao Yu. What's more, the current time and spirit realm should be in chaos. It's likely that a scuffle is taking place. You have lost your memory. Even if you go back to time and spirit, you will face many dangers. And Yi after a period of time may have a way to restore the memory of Dao Yu, but maybe Yi also dare not fully guarantee this is the case. It may take some time for Yi to leave the Holy Spirit realm. Before leaving here, you can make your own decision. Yi will never interfere. Even the suggestion is that if you want to leave, you can leave now. Can the 3 of them wake up?" The woman was silent again. After weighing it, she bit her lip and pointed to the 3 stunned women underground. "I should wake up later." Tian nodded. "I'm not in a hurry to leave. Let's discuss it when they wake up." The woman took a long breath and said, "Good." Tian said 2 words, then he ignored the girl and continued to grind down the original brand of God in the spirit beast ring. It also took about half an hour for the brand of the afterworld to disappear without leaving any trace. Soon, his thoughts were imprinted on the spirit beast ring, and the situation in the spirit beast ring was reflected in his mind. Tian's eyebrows wrinkled, and then spread out, slightly squinting eyes shining light. No one can imagine that there are 3,000 or 4,000 monsters in such a small spirit beast ring that can only be put on the wrist. 3rd order, 4th order, 5th order. In addition to the 5th level, those monsters have more than half of the 5th level monsters. What does the underworld want to do with so many monsters? The great value of these monsters is very important to Tian, which means that the overall strength of Tian's team will be greatly improved, but he immediately raised a little doubt in his heart. Compared with countless ghost cultivation, the strength of these monsters is nothing at all. However, it must take a lot of time to get these monsters.
What are they going to do? Does it have something to do with resurrecting the ghost of the underworld? Do the blood that feeds the blood spirits of mayflies have something to do with these monsters? Queen of the Underworld, is that so-called Queen of the Underworld the Queen of the Underworld? It seems unlikely. In other words, there can only be one underworld in the ghost world, and the replacement ruler who appears again cannot be called the underworld? Tian couldn't find an accurate answer to many of the questions, but he guessed that these things must have something to do with the resurrection of Hades. Put down the spirit beast ring in his hand, Tian looks at the other four. The same spirit beast ring is placed in the same place in the boneware of the underworld. It should be roughly the same as the monster in it. Unexpectedly, before she left, she gave herself such a big gift. He didn't continue to look at the four spirit beast rings in it. It took a lot of time to kill the original spirit brand, but it would take more time to recognize those massive monsters as masters. For a disciple and servant, Tian doesn't want to do it himself. Put away all the spirit beast rings, and Tian Shenian sweeps through the boneware, leaving only the dark stone. But the dark stone here is totally different from the past. The dark gas in it seems to be more pure and gold. It is piled up in a big space, flashing black light. It seems that it's a higher level stone. Tian quickly came to this conclusion. He didn't use these dark stones. He put down the golden storage bone and took another storage bone made of leg bone. After some operation, the idea of divinity penetrated into it. A lot of ghost stones. There are still many bone artifacts. These can't arouse Tian's interest. His eyes soon fall on the hundreds of magic weapons in the cave. He took out one of them and played with it in his hand, but he didn't easily remove the mark of his mind. If you open the magic cave, if you come out of it, you will be in trouble. He cautiously cast his source eye and looked into the magic cave. Soon, he penetrated the magic cave layer by layer and saw the situation inside. When you see the situation inside, Tian's face becomes very blue. There are nearly 1,000 male and female monks in the huge magic weapon cave. They are of different ages and different realms. Under the eye of Yuan Tian, Tian looks into these people's bodies one by one. There are few monks in Jindan realm, most of them are in the realm of refining qi, viewing the sea in Longmen. As for the existence of Yuanyingjing, Tian didn't see any. Even some of them are obviously barbarians in terms of dress. There are so many low-level monks, and there are hundreds of magic weapon caves that have not been checked. If we calculate by this amount, the number is nearly 1,000,000. Timon's spiritual realm is very large. Apart from the large number of sects, there are countless small sects, small families, and scattered practitioners. It's not difficult to capture 100,000 monks in this realm. Are these monks going to be the sacrifices of the netherworld? Used to resurrect the underworld? Otherwise, there is no reason for the people in the ghost world to get these low-level friars and put them in the bone storage of the underworld. From this we can see how evil and ferocious the cultivation of the ghost world is. Fortunately, he killed the ghost of the netherworld and Songming world. Otherwise, if he gets out of trouble, he will be in mourning. At this time, these low-level human friars are listless and depressed in the magic cave. Although the space of the magic cave is not small, it is a little crowded for so many people. There are more than a dozen people lying on the ground in the limited space, looking at the situation. Although the physical ability of the practitioners is far higher than that of ordinary people, if they can't get nutrition in the magic cave for a long time, they will run out of oil one day. After a little meditation, Tian put away this magic cave, and took out hundreds of other magic caves, earning his own Shumi commandment. Then he looked at the beautiful nun in front of him, who was actually Gu Shangjuan, a descendant of the ancestor of Luoshan. Dao Yu, I have something urgent to deal with. You should have a rest in the cave. I'll see you when it's finished. With that, Tian put down some fairy jade, put away 4 ice coffins and skeletons, and turned out of the cave. The ice coffin is not made of ordinary cold. There is no sign of melting in the magic cave, but the temperature of the whole space is very low. If these nuns were not practitioners, ordinary people would not be able to bear such a low temperature.
Put away the magic weapon cave, Yi Tian entered the cave where Xianrun was.
In Tian Luonet, the manatee was still trapped in it. Xianrun's palm was still on the top of the beast's head, searching for the soul.
Master, I haven't finished the search, but I know the general situation. See Yi Tian come in. Xianrun just wanna get up to salute, but be pressed by Yi Tian, he just sat back to introduce away.
To the point. The most important thing is which direction is the closest to the land. Yi Tian said directly.
Xianrun nodded slightly and said, yes, master, the nearest place to the land is more than 50,000 li.
The island is semicircular.
The direction of the big stone at the end is the direction to the nearest land.
What's more, this sea area is called Wanjia Sea, which is the territory of the sea demon.
The Terran friars are not allowed to step into it, otherwise they will be punished by the sea demon. In addition to the sea demons, there are also mountain demons in this Holy Spirit realm. The mountain demons and the sea demons do not interfere, but they stand on the same position in oppressing the Terran.
The mountain demon is more ferocious than the sea demon.
The Terran forces are oppressed in a very small area, and many places are designated as forbidden areas by the mountain demon. In order to limit the development of the Terran, although the cultivation system of the mountain demon is different from that of the Terran, the mountain demon regularly asks the Terran to pay tribute, collect Xinyu and Linkai, mainly to limit the enhancement of the Terran's strength, so that the Terran's strength is always weaker than that of the demon. Moreover, if any Terran friar hunts, kills and feeds the demon clan, he will have the cruel revenge of the demon clan. 10,000 years ago, there were several wars between the Terrans and the demons, but they all ended in the defeat of the Terrans. The strong Terrans fell down countless times, so that they gradually declined and collapsed.
It has been many years since they were oppressed by the demons. Yi Tian nodded and said, no wonder it's called the Holy Spirit Realm. It's such a origin. Have you ever found the information about the space passage to the realm of Wan Wangling? Xianrun gently shook his head. According to the current soul search situation, there is no news about this. I'll continue to search in a moment, and don't let go of any clues. I'll go back to the Terrans and ask about Terrans. By the way, what is the state of the top power of demons and Terrans? Yi Tian asked. Xianrun said, the most powerful one among the sea demons is a double-headed Jiawan, a 7-level monster. The most powerful existence of the mountain demon is the 7th order tiger demon. Moreover, among all the sea demons and mountain demons, these are the only 2 7th-level monsters.
Chao, with the strength of 2 7th-level monsters, has bullied the Terran like a bear.
Is there no great friar in Yupu realm in the Terran?
When Yi Tian heard the news, he was about to spit out a mouthful of old blood. The master really expected things like God. As for the human friars, there were no friars in Yupu realm. To put it in a bad way, the cultivation of Lao Nu is the top power among the human friars. Xianrun said words, can't help shaking his head, obviously a little disappointed with the strength of the human race in the Holy Spirit domain.
Moreover, there are also some human friars.
In order to survive better in this situation, they also took refuge with the demon clan to provide the demon clan with human intelligence, information and resources. Such human scum can be found everywhere, in time and spirit realm, and this Holy Spirit realm is no exception. These guys don't know how to cultivate well, improve their realm, and defend the dignity and interests of the human race. Instead, they always want to take advantage of others and betray their peers. It's really hateful. Xianrun, put such forces in the jade slips and give them to me at that time.
Yi Tianling snorted and angrily left the magic weapon cave. There are only 2 of the most powerful great friars in Yupu realm in the demon clan.
Yi Tianxin is determined that the situation of being chased and killed by many great friars in time and spirit realm will never be repeated in Holy Spirit realm. After putting away the magic weapon cave, Yi Tian comes to the island and covers the nearby sea area with his mind. After observing, he finds the big stone mentioned by Xianrun and shoots away with a fierce sword. Now the speed of the fierce soldier's flying sword is much faster than that of Dun Tiansuo.
Even if Yi Tian doesn't use any mana, the speed of the fierce soldier's flying sword manipulated by Xian Dragon Sword Spirit can completely meet Yi Tian's needs.
The distance of 50,000 li is only a matter of 3 or 2 hours for the fierce soldier's flying sword. Along the way,
Yi Tian saw that there were many sea animals in the sea below. They were in groups. He didn't know whether they were looking for the alchemist himself or other actions. Anyway, Yi Tian has no interest in these. His goal is to land as soon as possible. Connected with the Wanjia Sea area is a boundless mountain, with dense trees and wild mountains, showing a state of primitive forest without human trace for a long time. The trees are tall, the weeds are thick, and all kinds of monsters flash past from time to time. The vast virgin forest is no less than the devil forest in the wildland. Although landing, but here is still the boundary of the mountain demon, Yi Tian continued to fly forward, did not stay here too much. Half a day later, the vast virgin forest finally emerged, the mountain became more gentle, and Yi Tian slowly fell into a valley full of flowers. He opened his mind and covered the mountains more than 10,000 li. After careful observation, he did not find any powerful monsters. Then Yi Tian took out a magic cave, which was Shenrun's cave. "See you, master." Shenrun came out from the inside, bowed to Yi Tian and gave him a jade slip. Yi Tian took it and felt it on his forehead without asking too much. Shenrun has recorded the things he explained, including some things that Shenrun thinks Yi Tian should know. Yi Tian just had a common sense understanding and kept it in mind. These materials are the best to use, but they are useless. After a few words to Shenrun, Yi Tian takes out a magic weapon cave again and gives it to Shenrun. Shenrun takes it over, quickly erases the mental imprint of the Empress of the Underworld, and marks his own mental imprint. Then he puts the magic weapon cave in the valley and stands by Yi Tian's side. The Taoist friends inside can come out. When he enlarged the magic weapon cave, Shenrun had already lifted the ban on the gate of the cave. With Yi Tian's call, the gate of the cave was pushed open, and then several monks jumped out, each holding the magic weapon in his hand, waiting for him like a big enemy. Seeing this, Yi Tian said with a dumb smile, "You don't have to be like this. It's safe here." Yi officially announced that you have been rescued from the hands of the ghost world. From now on, you are free. Did Dao Yu save us? At the front, a tall friar of Jindanjing looked at Shenrun suspiciously, then at Yi Tian, and asked tentatively. Among the two, Yi Tian's realm is obviously lower. Since Shenrun's practice of spiritualism, he has basically controlled his realm at the level of Golden Elixir realm except when he exerts his power of transforming the divine realm. Now his realm is the peak of Golden Elixir realm. Although his strength seems to be much stronger than that of Yi Tian, standing beside him, he looks respectful. At first sight, his status is far less respected than that of Yi Tian. This person quickly judged that Yi Tian Kai was the leader of the two. Yes, it's Yi Mao's chance to get the magic weapon cave from the Underworld Queen. Yi Tian nodded slightly. "Thank you, Dao Yu." The light in the man's eyes twinkled, he said thanks and bowed to Yi Tian deeply. Then he turned around and said in a loud voice to the magic cave, "Fellow students, we are safe. We can come out of this disgusting cave and breathe the free air." With his voice, the people inside came out one after another. At first, they were still tired. They immediately radiated vitality. Some people even cried with joy and could not help but shed tears. This Taoist friend. It seems that in the magic cave, the monk of the Golden Elixir realm has been recognized by others. He seems to be a leader. Seeing everyone come out from inside, he speaks again. "If you have any questions, just ask." Yi Tian nods in response. "May I ask Yi Dao Yu, where is this?" The man looked at the valley in full bloom and asked suspiciously. "If it's such questions, you will answer them one by one later. Are there any of you who are dying and continue to be treated?" Yi Tian waved his hand and asked directly. "Yes. There are several Taoist friends who are really in danger. They are all young people in the gas refining period. Several of them have been used up and haven't eaten for many days. If they have some food, they can be relieved." The friar hastened back. "Bring it out quickly." Yi Tian waved and said quickly. "Bring it out. Quick." The monk turned back and said, immediately someone went back to the cave and carried out 7 or 8 monks. Yi Tian threw a jade bottle behind him, "One for each, take it."
Yi Tian has a lot of such jade bottles, which are all the spoils of previous battles.
They are all pills to increase vitality and nutrition and replace food.
Although they are not very advanced, they are very effective for such monks who are weak because of hunger. This side is busy, and Yi Tian hands Xianrun a magic weapon cave again.
Xianrun's divine power is far stronger than Yi Tian's.
It's the most appropriate thing to give him this kind of thing to erase the imprint of the afterlife soul.
Is this the master of Washinjing? See you.
The tall monk of Jindanjing, when Xianrun was erasing the magic mark of the cave, suddenly felt the strong breath released from him.
He couldn't help exclaiming and quickly saluted Xianrun. See you, master.
More than 1,000 monks from the cave also bowed to Xianrun one after another.
Don't salute me. My master is here.
I, as a slave, am not qualified to receive your great gift. Xianrun raised his eyelids and said that he continued to be busy with his own affairs. At that time, these people have some silly eyes, can't help looking at Yi Tian again. His face showed a shocked look.
What kind of existence is it that a monk in the golden elixir has a servant in the divine realm?
But Yi Tian said before that he would help his fellow monks first, and the rest would be answered one by one later.
They did not dare to ask.
From the magic weapon cave in Xianrun's hand, they already have some conjectures.
I'm afraid they are not the only ones who are locked up in the cave by the ghost world.
Sure enough, after a while, Xianrun had wiped out the original mark of his mind and made his own mark. After the magic cave was enlarged in the valley, more than 1,000 people came out one after another. With more than 2,000 people, the scene immediately became a bit chaotic, especially the later group of monks who came out of the cave were all muddled and didn't know what was going on. The only thing they can be sure of is that they should have escaped the devil's claws of the ghost world and been rescued.
Everyone be quiet.
Just a moment later, Yi will explain something to you.
If you don't have patience, you can leave quietly now. Yi Tian glanced at the agitated crowd and said calmly. With Yi Tian's words, the commotion immediately subsided, but no one left.
Some monks who didn't know why began to transmit messages and asked some of the people who came out first about the situation. There were also some friars who had known each other before.
They got together and talked with each other. For these, Yi Tian has no constraints.
As Xianrun recognized the master one by one, the monks were released one after another.
Some people in need of treatment, Yi Tian took out the pill to them. There are more and more temples to be unsealed. Correspondingly, there are more and more monks to be released.
During this period, Yi Tian once declared several times. However, most of these monks, who are newly free and facing a completely strange environment, have a herd mentality. No one left here before, and no one left here later. There are more than 100 magic caves. No matter how fast Xianrun is, it will take a few hours to erase the brand and lay the brand of divine thoughts. Until the last magic weapon was released, all the 108 monks in the cave were empty. More than 600 monks died in the cave, and many of them were buried in the valley. Looking at more than 100,000 monks in front of him, Yi Tian's body slowly soared into the air and stopped 30 feet from the ground. Fellow members, how you were put into the magic cave should be very clear in your hearts.
Yi Tian's eyes slowly swept across the faces and said in a loud voice, moreover, I believe that what's the specific purpose of Guiyu Mingxiu to capture you? In such a long time, you should have a guess.
I, Yi Tian, in the confrontation with the ghost world, captured the ghost world's afterbone in the realm of Mingzun, so as to obtain the magic weapon cave where you are imprisoned. At that time, because of the pursuit of many powerful enemies, Yi left Taimanlingyu. At this point, there was a commotion in the crowd, obviously shocked by the news. Yi Tian pressed with both hands and stopped the public's discussion. Yes, this is not to Wild Spirit Realm, but a place called Holy Spirit Realm.
Yi also came to Holy Spirit Realm to find the existence of these magic cave. If you want to go back to the spirit realm of Taiman, you can go through a huge whirlpool in the Wanjia Sea area, which is more than 50,000 li away from here, and you can see it all the way to the west. But what I want to tell you is that the present Taiman spirit realm is very chaotic. At least a big war is inevitable. Especially in the ghost realm, more than 1 million Mingxiu died at the hands of Yi. They are likely to launch revenge on the Terran crazily.
Maybe you think I'm talking big, maybe you think it's because of ye that I've brought disaster to the Terrans in the two wild spirit realm. Here, I'd like to explain that it's a small matter to kill 1 million of them. The most important thing is that ye killed the ghost of the Ghost Kingdom, the nickname of the underworld people, and then killed the Empress of the underworld.
This is the root cause of their madness. If you don't kill the spirit of Chaos Underworld, when he becomes strong, the whole time and spiritual realm will be destroyed, and the Terran can no longer resist that kind of existence. Here, I would like to remind you. There is a terrible space pressure when you go back to the space channel of time and spirit realm. If you don't have the cultivation of Yuaniing realm, you should never think about going back to time and spirit realm through the channel. Even the friars of Yuaniing could be torn up by the power of space. Don't look at me. I'm a golden elixir, but my means are not what you can imagine. It can be said that the way I can pass through the space channel can't be copied. The right to choose belongs to you. Ye is only responsible for explaining all this. It's a bit of advice for you. Next, I would like to say that the Holy Spirit realm where we are now is a horizontal world of demons and beasts. The human race is tiny and bullied. It can be said that we are surviving under the power of demons and beasts. Taoists who can't get through the space channel can choose to stay here, ready to survive in the crack between local monks and monsters. Ye is from a remote spiritual realm. In that spiritual realm, ye founded a sect called Miluo Palace. Ye is naturally the founder of this palace and the first generation of palace leader. If someone doesn't want to go back to the spirit realm of Timon or stay in the spirit realm of Holy Spirit, he can worship in the Miluo Palace and become a disciple of this palace. Ye dares to guarantee that all the people in the Miluo Palace will have more training resources, more opportunities to improve their realm, and more opportunities to live. Well, I've finished what I should say. You have complete freedom to decide whether you want to stay or not. Ye will never interfere. But there is one thing. In your face of being persecuted by the ghost world, he gives you the opportunity to worship the temple of Miluo regardless of the good and the bad. But once you worship in the temple, you have to follow the rules of the temple, otherwise you will be severely punished by the rules of the palace. There's only one chance. If you don't grasp this chance, you will never give you a second chance. Shenrun, take back the cave. We are 10 miles away, waiting for an hour. After an hour, ye will leave here. Finally, I wish you a suitable choice. After Yi Tian's long speech, Shenrun takes away more than 100 magic weapons, and he flies to the other end of the valley. Shenrun takes a look at more than 10,000 people and follows Yi Tian silently. Master, what are they hesitating about? If it's my Xian family's children, I will let them worship at the door of the Miluo Palace without hesitation. Xinyan observed that the monks were discussing with each other in a soft voice, and Shenrun said. Yi Tian smiles, a person's life is very long, but the most important thing is only a few steps. Sometimes, choice is more important than effort. I'm just offering them a possibility. It doesn't matter whether they can come with me or not. If you send them back to the Taman spirit realm, maybe the outcome of waiting for them will be worse. After all, the Taman spirit realm is more chaotic than here. To give them the chance to join the temple is more to reassure themselves, because it means that I have never abandoned these people. As for how to choose, it is their freedom, and everyone has to bear the consequences for their own choice. As for giving them only one chance to choose, they should be determined after careful consideration, rather than swaying in the face of the wind. I understand. Shenrun's face turned red and answered. Clearly Yi Tian is talking about those friars, but how does Shenrun feel that Yi Tian is talking about himself before? Bit by bit, some monks have made a choice. Some people flew towards Yi Tian, and some monks rose up and left the valley. There are still some people, standing in the same place, seem to be hesitant. You are welcome to choose to join the temple of Miluo, and stand on one side. See to come over a friar, Leaf Day Dynasty side a point ground say. See you, master of the palace. The monks saluted Yi Tian one after another, and then stood aside obediently. There were only more than 1,000 monks in the first group, but there were more and more people coming from behind. At that time, the number of monks was less than those who left. Among these monks,
there are some from the realm of refining qi to the realm of golden elixir. Comparatively speaking, the proportion of monks in the realm of golden elixir is relatively small.
Yi Tian just glanced slightly and said nothing more.
He just stood in the same place and continued to wait.
One after another, some people came and some people left the valley.
The number of monks gathered around Yi Tian gradually increased to 10,000.
20,000, 30,000. Well, it's time.
At a certain moment, Yi Tian, who was secretly calculating the time, suddenly says something and looks at many monks gathered around him. At this time, more than 40,000 people came to him, nearly 40% of the total number.
This number has exceeded Yi Tian's expectation.
In addition to the monks who gathered here and left, there are nearly 20,000 monks who still stay in the same place and have not made the final choice. Yi Tian didn't pay attention to those people, but said to them, "From now on, you are one of the members of the Miluo Palace." Now the master of the palace reads out the 72 laws of the Miluo Palace. I hope all the disciples will abide by them and not violate them. In the first law, all disciples of the Miluo Palace must be loyal to their own palace, not have two hearts, not know foreign enemies, not divulge the secrets of their own palace, and those who violate it will be beheaded. In the second law, all disciples of the Miluo Palace must put morality first, do not indiscriminately kill innocent people, do not rely on martial arts to deceive others, do not hide evil thoughts in their hearts, and those who violate will be killed. In the third law, all the disciples of the Miluo Palace must live in harmony. They should not fight with each other, be jealous of the virtuous and the capable, and be cruel to each other. Those who violate the law will be killed. Yi Tian is already familiar with the 72 laws of Miluo Palace. When the last commandment was finished, Yi Tian stopped for a moment, his eyes slowly swept over more than 40,000 monks, and said in a deep voice, "Do you understand the 72 commandments in our palace?
If you think you can't abide by these 72 commandments, you can quit now. But once you join the Miluo Palace, if you violate the 72 laws, you will be punished according to the palace rules." The Lord of the Palace, from the 72 laws, we can see that the Miluo Palace is a sect that promotes justice and is jealous of evil. Lin Yichuan is willing to join the Miluo Palace and stick to the commandments. The tall monk of Jindanjing stood up and said, "Good." Yi Tian nodded to him and looked at the others. "Lord Yi, I've always been alone. I'm used to being loose. I can't stand too many restrictions.
Thanks to Lord Yi for his salvation and his kindness. In order to avoid future mistakes, I will not join your palace." After a moment of silence, another tall monk came out, rushed to Yi Tian and told him the end of the meeting. As soon as he flew up, he left the crowd.
"I'm not sure that I can abide by the 72 laws. I'd rather be idle and wild from now on. Thank you for your kindness. Goodbye." Then another nun left the crowd. Some people left one after another. It was only after 60 or 70 people left that the team calmed down. No one said anything more.
From beginning to end, Yi Tian's face was as plain as water, without any superfluous expression. Even next to Xianrun, whose face suddenly changed, he didn't have any reaction.
He just took a look at Xianrun and motioned him not to say any more.
"Well, now you are the official disciples of the Miluo Palace, but you can only be regarded as the outer disciples.
To enter the inner gate, you still need to be examined in the future.
If you want to become the pro-disciples, it depends on your efforts and talents."
Lin Yichuan.
At this point, Yi Tian suddenly looked at the tall middle-aged monk. "In the future, you will be responsible for registering all the disciples in the roster, registering the detailed information, origin, cultivation realm, and practicing methods in this palace for the record."
"Yes, I will obey the instructions of the palace master."
Lin Yichuan bowed respectfully.
Yi Tian nodded slightly and continued, "Practice is not only self-cultivation but also mental cultivation.
On the way of practice, we need countless hones, and hones are everywhere.
To join me is to give you a direction and a goal, and to provide you with some protection on the way of practice. The so-called master leads you through the door. It's up to you how much you can achieve in the future.
Maybe some of you will be the shining stars in the temple of Miluo, or they will decay with the vegetation without leaving a trace.
These are certain possibilities, and it's up to you to write about which one.
Since the temple accepts you as its disciples, it will naturally provide corresponding resources, and you should do your part as a disciple. Before returning to the headquarters of the temple, the palace master will fully ensure your safety and distribute the corresponding resources to each disciple. Each of the disciples above Longmen realm has 100 immortal jade and 1/2 immortal weapon. Each of the disciples below Longmen realm has 50 immortal jade, 1 top magic weapon. As soon as Yi Tian said this, there was a commotion in the crowd. Almost everyone thought they had heard it wrong.
You know, the magic weapon of Banxianding is so precious.
In Time and Spirit realm, even ordinary monks in Yuanying realm rarely have one, not to mention monks in Jindan realm and Longmen realm. There were at least 10,000 monks in Longmen realm and Jindan realm. Each of them had a handle, which was a magic weapon of Banxian soldiers. Even if the inside information of the Miluo Palace is abundant, it is very exaggerated to take out more than 10,000 magic weapons.
Moreover, there are more than 30,000 people equipped with top-level magic weapons, and the number of top-level magic weapons needed is absolutely astronomical.
Yi Tian made a slight gesture to stop the public's discussion. Some magic weapons are absolutely nothing to the Temple of Miluo. Now, there are countless monsters coming from all directions. They are more than 10,000 miles away from here.
The total number is at least 1 million. A million monsters? There was another commotion in the crowd. Yes, a million monsters are nothing?
At that time, let you witness the real strength of the temple.
You new disciples don't need to make a move.
To put it mildly, with your current strength, you don't have the qualification to make a move.
You just have to watch.
If you don't dare to look, enter the magic cave.
Yi Tian's eyes slowly swept the crowd and said.
With that, he gestured and released 2 magic weapons. 100 dead men and many of Yi Tian's disciples came out of it. In the eyes of everyone's consternation, Yi Tian tidies up and waves continuously, and there are a lot of semi-immortal soldiers' magic weapons and top magic weapons on the ground, as well as countless immortal jade.
These are the Imperial Master's disciples.
You should call them Elder Martial Brothers and Elder Martial Sisters. Yi Tianchao pointed out that Nieba and others simply introduced it, and then explained the standard of resource allocation to the disciples. Nieba, together with many Kunlun practitioners, divided the new disciples into several groups according to different realms, and then allocated the resources one by one according to Yi Tian. When you see that Xianyu and Banxianbing's magic weapon have been taken, and those disciples of Longmen realm and Jindan realm have repeatedly identified them, you really believe what Yi Tian said. Looking at the big pile of magic weapons in the valley, everyone was stunned.
I'm afraid none of the 8 sects in Lingyu can match such resources and details.
In the distant valley, many monks who didn't decide to stay or go were shocked by the movement here. They gathered together one after another and looked at the scene in front of them with a complicated look. Their faces were very wonderful. Some people are hesitant to ask Yi Tian to join the Miluo Palace. But when they think of what Yi Tian said before, and look at his indifferent eyes, they just focus on what they say to those Yuanying dead men who come out of the magic weapon cave. They don't even look at themselves at all, so their mind sinks down. Up to now, I feel shameless when I want to join the Miluo Palace.
I can't say it at all. Alright, do it now. On the other hand, Yi Tian whispered to the dead and said, without controlling his voice anymore.
100 dead men immediately held Shumi Ring and released a large number of Huafan stones in the valley. In less than half an hour, the whole valley was covered with thick Huafan stones. In a short period of time, the valley with flowers in full bloom turned into a miniature black desert. In this way, the amount of Huafan stone consumed was only the amount of dozens of Shumi precepts. At this time, Yi Tian came out of the magic cave and looked around at the sky. The figures in all directions flashed, and many friars, who had left here before, came back from the valley in a hurry. Seeing the black sand all over the ground, many people were stunned and almost felt that they had gone to the wrong place. However, when they saw Yi Tian and the more than 40,000 monks, together with some familiar mountains nearby, they were sure that, yes, it was here. With the spreading of Huafan stone, more than 40,000 monks felt that their mana was limited, and they could not use it at all. After a short period of panic, Yi Tian ordered them to be quiet. At this time, regardless of their previous status and origin, they are all disciples of the temple. They must abide by the 72 laws of the temple, and one of the 72 laws is to forbid them. Here, all the non-Minot disciples gather here. There are at least 1 million monsters, many of them high-level monsters, and there are monsters coming here one after another.
If you want to live, all obey the command.
Around the valley, more than 100 dead men met the monks who were forced back by demons and beasts in various places and kept directing them.
Although these people did not choose to join the temple, it was only their personal choice. Tian would not give them up because of this.
Because of the great momentum of the herds coming from all directions, the monks who left early sensed the herds with their mind. They had grasped some opportunities. When they hurried back to the valley, the herds did not show their bodies within sight. But it's close to the valley. All the disciples of the Milieu Palace, and all the others, the beasts are ferocious.
There's no place for you to use your cultivation.
You just need to watch them here. Let's see how the Temple of Milieu tortures the demons in the Holy Spirit realm. Tian's body slowly lifted up, suspended in the low air, and said in a low voice. In this case, people were stunned. Everyone knows that because of the appearance of large black sand, these people can't use their mana at all. That is to say, compared with the monks in the cave, unless they are physically strong and have rich combat experience, they have no advantage in mana.
But the leaf day can soar, such means, several close to the demon.
At this moment, Tian and the Temple of Milieu which he founded become very mysterious in the eyes of people. The monks who joined the temple were full of excitement when they saw such a situation. They even couldn't wait to see the fighting power of the temple. Boom boom, soon, the mountains around the valley roared, and the ground shook violently, as if thousands of troops and horses were galloping. Not only on the ground there are countless monsters coming from all directions, but also in the sky. In such a situation, more than 100,000 monks in the valley could not help but turn pale. However, when they saw that Tian was still indifferent to all this, and even did not lift his eyelids, the disciples of the Milieu Palace were not afraid, and they were as calm as a mountain. But I can't help surmise that there are many 4th and 5th order monsters and such fierce monsters, which are equivalent to the human friars Jindan realm and Yuanying realm.
Even in the sky, there are 6th order monsters in human form.
On the other side of the Milieu Palace, there are only a few dozen monks in Yuanying, and only one is suspected of transforming the divine realm, which is Shen Run, who calls himself an old slave.
With such a huge difference in strength, how can Tian resist the fury of monsters?
If there is no special means, I'm afraid that the impact of more than 1 million monsters may tear up all the people here. There are even many monks who have been thinking about how to survive in the Jedi if Tian's Milieu Palace is wiped out by the beasts. Among the beasts, there are many devils who can escape from the earth. I'm afraid they can't escape from the earth. Then in everyone's mind, the monsters in all directions are getting closer and closer, and they are about to rush into the valley.
However, there is still no movement on Tian's side.
Boom! The next moment, the herd rushed into the valley full of stone. All of a sudden, the demons flying in the sky suddenly lost their flying ability and fell down from the sky like meteorites. The monsters on the ground used to have a terrible impact, but when they entered the black sand area, the impact slowed down and the speed slowed down a lot. Some monsters were directly hit by monsters falling from the sky, causing chaos in all directions. At this time, Tian finally got something moving. Dozens of figures suddenly appeared out of thin air, flying from Tian's side and away in all directions. The magic weapon of Banxianbing in his hand flashed a terrible light and killed the animals madly.
Boom! Boom! Boom!
A roar almost sounded at the same time, the huge sounds superimposed together, like a thunderbolt in the clear sky. General split, blood and flesh flying in all directions, everywhere is splashing blood, flying carcasses.
Martial spirit puppet. I know, it's the martial spirit puppet of Qingyun sect.
In the valley, a friar saw the dozens of figures and then suddenly called out. No, as like as 2 peas, the spirit of the puppet of Qingyun's temple is not so terrible.
The puppet has at least the strength of the highest point of the Yuan baby's territory.
The spirit of the puppet of Qingyun's spirit is only the strength of the Yuan baby's early stage. Although it is the same as the spirit puppet of Qingyun's clan, the gap in strength is very obvious, but there is still some understanding in the next.
Then a monk refuted. You are not paying attention to the point. Don't you think that the magic power of those martial spirit puppets is not limited? Flying freely, is it all right to attack? Another exclaimed. Some people are talking and exclaiming, but more people are shocked by the shocking scene. There are 71 puppets with martial spirits. Each puppet guards for miles. They come and go like flying. The magic weapons of immortal soldiers in their hands are like chopping melons and cutting vegetables. Where they attack, they are all full of corpses. In a short period of time, the monsters who rushed into the valley were killed by them. The edge of the valley was covered with incomplete carcasses, and the blood had dyed the black sand red. No matter what realm those monsters are and how terrifying their strength is, as long as they enter the black coverage area, they all become ordinary beasts, and their own strength cannot be exerted. In the face of the 71 martial spirit puppets at the top of Yuanying realm, who have not been suppressed, they are only allowed to be slaughtered. Ouch! There was a loud howl in the herd, and the monsters in all directions of the valley turned around and ran back. Come like the tide, go like the tide, leaving only countless bodies, were photographed on the beach. From the beginning to the end, Yi Tiandong didn't move either. He was suspended in the low sky. Looking at the massacre in the valley, his face was always indifferent. After the herd retreated, the 71 puppets did not pursue and kill. Instead, they stayed in a corner of the valley, each with a blank face. However, they were just like killing gods, which was frightening. Continue to distribute resources to our disciples. Yi Tian stood aloof and stopped when he saw the herd withdraw more than 10 miles away. He surrounded the valley with the following demons. Obviously, he didn't mean to retreat. Moreover, with the arrival of demons from all directions, he gathered more and more. He said with indifference and went into a magic cave. Behind him, Xianrun followed him step by step. Due to the sudden arrival of the herd, the distribution of Xianyu and magic weapons was only half finished. At Yi Tian's command, many of his disciples continued to distribute them to the monks who joined the temple. At the beginning of the end of the war, the shock caused by this scene was no less than that of the crazy massacre. Many monks left the valley before Yi Tian announced the allocation of resources for the monks who joined the Miluo palace, so they did not know what happened later. In front of us, there are many magic weapons of Bangxianbing and the top ones. All monks above Longmen will get a magic weapon of Bangxianbing. All the monks below Longmen are given a top-level magic weapon, and there are so many Xianyu. In such a situation, the monks who were watching were greatly shocked. However, all these resources belong to those who join the monks of the Temple of Miluo, and for those who choose to leave, the latter does not make a choice, it has nothing to do with them. Now, they are just vulnerable groups sheltered in the Temple of Miluo, relying on the protection of the Temple of Miluo, they can live until now. Many monks looked at the scene of distributing resources with wonderful expressions. Some of them had straight eyes, some of them had dry lips, some of them had rolling Adam's apple and were swallowing saliva. But the monks who got the magic weapon and the fairy jade were all in high spirits, and their eyes were shining. I felt that although the demons and beasts in all directions were only surrounded but not attacked, the number of them was more and more. Even if the monks wanted to leave, they couldn't do it at all. At first, some monks from the cave came to the battlefield, selected some animal corpses, took firewood from the edge of the valley, and went back to the valley to bake them. After being held in the cave for a long time, these monks who didn't open the valley had no food to eat for a long time. When they suddenly saw so many monsters, they couldn't resist the desire to eat. With the leaders, more and more monks followed suit. Only the new disciples who joined the temple looked around. Because of the restriction of the palace rules, they did not dare to act without authorization. Disciple of the Miluo Palace, I am Mieba, the eldest disciple of the master of the Miluo Palace and the eldest martial brother of the Miluo Palace. If you are hungry, you can get the meat in an orderly way and roast it in your camp. You are not allowed to leave the team without authorization. When the crowd was so hot, Nieba came to the crowd and said aloud. The new disciples have already seen that this strong man has a superior position in the temple. Up to now, they finally know that he is the eldest disciple of the Lord Yi Tian. However, it is obvious that this man's cultivation realm has entered Yuanying realm, but his master, the palace leader Yi Tian,
has only the early cultivation of Jindan realm, which makes people very surprised. But this is not the most important thing. Since someone said something, the monks in the cave immediately got excited, said thanks to the Elder Master, and went to the battlefield one after another to choose their favorite animal meat. For these low-level monks, the whole body of high-level monsters is precious. Eating animal blood and meat is also helpful to the improvement of cultivation. Moreover, the vast majority of beasts have already condensed the devil Dan, that is the monster beast Huff and Puff, the essence of the sun and moon condensed, which has extremely abundant spiritual power. If properly applied, it will help the monks practice more. All the animal corpses are the spoils of the Miluo palace. All the friars in the valley were very clear, so the non-Minogue friars who had gone to get the meat only took the meat, and they didn't dare to move the rest. But those who have become disciples of the Miluo palace are different. The spoils of the Miluo palace are the spoils of the school and the things of their own family. After seeking advice from Miaba, they came to the edge of the valley and began to work. Animal skin, horn, tendon, demon pill, everything that could be used was soon divided up by them. Soon after that, a lot of bonfires were made and the valley was full of meat.
Without comparison, there is no harm.
The privilege of the disciples of the Miluo palace makes other monks hot-eyed, and some people's minds become active. Some people can't help looking at the magic cave where Yi Tian is. Since the monster retreated and Yi Tianlian assimilated the old slaves in the divine realm, there has been no movement. No one knows what Yi Tian, the palace master, is going to do when the demon clan is besieged. But now, anyone who wants to leave the valley will surely be torn to pieces by the demon clan's crazy revenge, and no one dares to leave without authorization. Since the monsters dare not enter the valley, they can only wait. In such a wait, time passed bit by bit.
1 day. 2 days.
3 days. As time went by, the herds outside the valley began to be brave, and they were no longer willing to be besieged more than 10 miles away. After many days of gathering, the herds of monsters became more and more huge and stacked, and they could not see the edge at a glance. They turned into a sea of monsters, and they did not know how many monsters there were. On the 4th day, the monsters began to contract slowly to the valley, compressing the encirclement 3 or 4 miles outside the valley. In the sky outside the valley, more than 30 monsters stood out of thin air, looking coldly into the valley. Under such circumstances, more than 100,000 monks in the valley cannot help but feel anxious and restless. Fortunately, those monsters are very afraid of the Black Desert, and no one dares to step into the valley. However, such a strong siege also shows the determination of the demon clan. It seems that they will never stop trapped in the valley. Even so, Yi Tian's magic cave is still very quiet. Since he entered, he never came out. Even Xianran did not appear again. Time flies. More than 20 days later, this day, finally, there is a voice in the magic cave. Exterminate the tyrant and lead the disciples and the dead into the mansion.
Yes, Master.
Hearing Yi Tian's voice, Nieba waved, and more than 100 people entered the cave. After the tea time, these people came out, and then more than 100 Kunlun practitioners were called in again.
At the same tea time, they came out of the magic cave.
One by one, his eyes were steady, and there was no expression on his face.
On the surface, he could not see why Yi Tian called them in.
As these Kunlun practitioners have been practicing in the magic cave for a long time, more than 40 people have entered the Yuanying realm, and the rest have reached the peak of the Jindan realm. It's just a matter of 1 day earlier and 1 day later to break through the Yuanying realm.
Let's go. Let's take the stone.
A moment later, Yi Tian comes out of the magic weapon cave with Xianran. He is dressed in black, with a cool look and sharp eyes.
After glancing at the situation in the valley, he shouts in a deep voice. Yes, son.
100 of the dead agreed, and immediately rose into the air, flew to all directions of the valley, collected mana, and began to recover the black Huafan stone in the valley.
Can they use their powers, too?
Seeing hundreds of black sand flying out of thin air, turning into a whirlpool of black sand and pouring into Shumi commandment, some monks began to exclaim. More than 20 days ago, the killing of many monsters was only done by 71 ghost puppets. These dead men and Yi Tian's disciples didn't do it, so that everyone thought that only the 71 puppets could exert their magic power in Zhonghua stone. In fact, their understanding is absolutely correct, but it was more than 20 days ago.
Now it's different. I don't know what Tian did in the magic cave, but he's really busy all the time. One of the major projects is refining the treasure clothes with Shenrun.
These 100 dead men have already put on their newly refined clothes, so they are no longer limited by the closing mana of Huafanstone.
After some surprise, some monks suddenly wake up. There are many knowledgeable people in those friars. They have already known that this magical stone can seal the magic power of friars and monsters, and the martial spirit puppets of Miluo Palace can kill so many monsters effortlessly, all by virtue of this magical black sand. But now, Tian asked people to put away all the Huafan stones. Without the help of this kind of black sand, the monsters outside the valley would have no fear. It is obvious what would happen after countless monsters rush into the valley. Tian seems to see the people's mind. He flew low again, said, "There are a large number of monsters, trapped is not a long-term solution, you decided to take back Huafanstone to break through. All my disciples of the Miluo Palace will enter the magic cave and take you with them to break through the encirclement." Shenrun, release the magic weapon. Yes, master.
Shenrun promised, gestured continuous action, a magic weapon cave appeared in the valley. More than 100 magic cave, located in the valley, appears to be a very large scale.
400 to 500 people in each cave, go in at once. After releasing the magic weapon into the cave, Shenrun waved and said, and then he commanded the disciples of the Miluo Palace to enter the cave. More than 10 minutes later, more than 40,000 new disciples joined the temple, and the number of people in the valley decreased a lot. In this process, the rest of the monks looked at each other, their faces changed constantly, and they began to envy the disciples who joined the temple. But there are also many people in the heart of the doubt. If there is no help of Huafanstone, Tian, these people can break out? After all, monsters look boundless, and the number of them is unknown.
There are many higher-level monsters among them, and their strength is absolutely terrible.
If Tian can't break through, what about himself? Almost everyone can't help but feel uneasy. Even the heart gave birth to varying degrees of fear. All of you are in the same way. In the holy and evil spirit realm, demons are in power, and the power of the human race is weak. If you want to survive in the holy and evil spirit realm, you have to become strong. Every day we live here, we will face the threat of monsters. The law of the jungle and the survival of the fittest will never change. For the sake of morality and justice, the Miluo Palace will cover you to break through the encirclement, but in the face of so many monsters, his first task is to ensure the safety of his disciples, and then he will give you a helping hand when he has spare power. Whether he can break through the encirclement alive depends on your own strength and means. Tian looked around at the other 60,000 monks and said so. Even if he didn't look at them anymore, he said in a loud voice to many disciples and Kunlun practitioners behind him, monks under Yuanying state don't have to die outside when they enter the cave. With his order, all the monks who had not yet entered Yuanying's realm entered their respective caves. Then a magic power hit them and put away the two magic weapons with all the disciples. In such a situation, all the more than 60,000 monks' eyes were straight and their bodies were chilly. Among these friars, there are quite a few of them. Originally, they thought that Tian's disciples also had some of them. If they break through the siege, they would have a better chance to live with them. However, Tian actually said that those disciples who have reached the peak of the golden elixir realm will die if they stay outside. Do we vulnerable groups in the early and middle stages of the golden elixir realm still have a way to live? Those monks in the golden elixir realm all have this idea, not to mention the monks in Longmen realm, Guanhai realm, and even the weakest monks in the cave realm. For the monks in the cave, any monster outside the valley may become the terminator of their lives. Their strength is only equal to that of the first-order monster, and they are limited to be stronger than ordinary beasts. The weakest one outside is also the second-order and third-order monster, and even the fourth and fifth-order monster can be found everywhere. If Tian, the people of the Miluo Palace, have a low chance to break through the siege, they are still far higher than the low-level monks, because their survival rate is almost zero. Lord Yi, we apply to join the Miluo Palace. Please accept us. A frail little monk looked at the less and less black sand in the valley, and the countless monsters outside the valley. Finally, he couldn't hold on any longer and knelt down to Tian.
Lord Yi, we also want to join the Miluo Palace.
Please let us enter the magic cave. Then a second monk knelt down.
Then one after another people knelt down and applied to join the Miluo Palace. In the blink of an eye, more than 1,000 people had knelt on the ground, all looking up at Yi Tian, as if waiting for the verdict of fate. Yi Tian glances at the crowd, and his right hand rises. The dead men who are recycling Huafan stone stop their actions immediately. At this time, Huafan stone is only 1 or 2 tenths away, and the monster does not dare to enter the valley for the time being. Yi said before that he would only give you 1 chance. If you miss it, the temple will never accept you as disciples.
But...
At this point, Yi Tian stopped.
But what?
Lord Yi, we didn't know much about the Miluo Palace before, and we didn't know enough about the demons in the Holy Spirit realm. Now we all see that joining the Miluo Palace is a very good choice. A brave monk in the cave raised his head and said that although Yi Tian refused, he still heard a bit of leeway from his tone. Yi Tian Dao said, originally, you wanted to enter the magic cave for refuge, but Yi may leave the Holy Spirit realm at any time for more reasons, and the monsters are rampant here, so you may not be able to find a safe place to release you. Although the human race here is weak, the situation in the nest is also very serious.
It's common to see infighting, fratricidal, weak and strong. Where are you going to be really safe?
Because to join the Miluo Palace is to follow the sect back to the palace headquarters, you can take the disciples of the palace around with each spiritual realm at any time, without having to say hello to the disciples of the palace. But with non-palace disciples, the situation is different.
Will you allow Yi to take you anywhere and then leave you on the way?
Moreover, the disciples of our palace need to continue to practice in the cave, which involves some of the skills and secrets of our palace. If non-disciples stay with them for a long time, it will affect the cultivation of the disciples and spread the secrets of our palace. Therefore, you should understand Ye's difficulties. The monk listened to Yi Tian carefully and thought about it, then said, Master Yi, I know that I missed a good opportunity to join the Miluo Palace, but now I am willing to follow Master Yi.
The younger generation also understands what the palace master said. How can we accept the younger generation and others? Please show us a clear way.
Yi Tian took a look at the 17-year-old young monk, and he was praised in his heart. He was only a 5-level monk in the cave, but he was already valuable for his age. The most important thing was that he had a clear mind, and he had courage and sense, and he spoke in a right way, which made people feel comfortable.
What's your name? Yi Tian asked.
My younger generation, Zhuxiangan, whose parents died when I was young, was a monk in the Timan spiritual realm. The reason why I hesitated in the valley before was that I had a sworn brother in the Timan spiritual realm, so I wanted to reunite with him in the Timan spiritual realm. Now it seems that the idea is unrealistic. All the wishes are based on the premise of saving one's life. The young man bowed his head and said with a heavy heart. Yi Tian nodded slightly. In this case, Yi will give you another choice.
For the time being, the Temple of Miluo is unable to join.
Yi will do what he says and will not break his word. However, in addition to the Temple of Miluo, there is also an army of monks, called the Sacred Wind Army.
If you want, you can join the Sacred Wind Army.
It's a peripheral institution of the Miluo Palace. The same series, it's not an outsider.
But there is one thing.
Joining the Sacred Wind Army does not have the resources and treatment of the disciples of the Miluo Palace. Besides training, if you have to perform certain tasks, your life may be in danger. However, if they perform well, they will choose their disciples from them in the future. The monks who perform well still have the opportunity to join the temple, enjoy the resources of the temple, get the guidance of cultivation, and even break through the barriers of realm.
How to choose? Yi Mao does not demand I'm willing to join the Shinfeng army. From then on, I'll give my life to the palace master.
Left Tuan, smell speech a joy, immediately said.
I'd like to, too. The younger generation also looks to join the Shinfeng army.
As soon as Zuoyan's voice fell, the rest of the monks kneeling on the ground began to speak.
Well, Yi, on behalf of the Shinfeng army, welcomes you to join. Now you can enter the cave. Yi Tian waved and said. Thank you for taking it in. The friars said thanks and got up one after another.
they ran to the cave which had not been put away. Lord Yi, Liao Feng is willing to join the Sacred Wind Army. In the crowd, a monk in the Golden Elixir realm also stood out at this time.
Yi Tian nodded his head and said, "Time is urgent."
Monks who are willing to join the Sacred Wind Army directly enter the cave.
It's just that. For those who can't abide by the 72 laws of the Milieu Palace before, the palace master can let you into the cave for a while, but when you get to a safe place without the herd, you will be released. Please help yourself. Whether it's the Milieu Palace or the Shinfeng Army, they will never want people like you. As soon as this remark was made, the dozens of monks who were due to commandments could not help but be stunned, while others swarmed. Some monks who did not speak because of their face took advantage of this opportunity to use various magic weapons with the crowd. Even some monks who still did not make a final decision entered the cave hesitantly under the threat of the crowd. In less than half an hour, in the valley, except for Yi Tian, there was no foreign monk. At this time, Yi Tiankai gently pursed his lips, showing a smile of treacherous success. It turns out that the master lied to me before. It seems that he has long wanted to bring everyone into the temple. As for the Sacred Wind Army? It's not a clever way to set up a name. It may not be without a warning. It seems that it will take a long time to gain the master's complete trust. See Yi Tian smile. For a moment, Xian Run in the heart of imagination also secretly warned himself. Xian Run, put away the magic weapon cave. At this time, Yi Tian took a look at him and said. Yes, Xian Run agreed, gesture after gesture, put a lot of magic cave one by one income Shumi precepts. Continue to collect all stones. Yi Tian once again ordered that this kind of magic stone, Yi Tian gradually realized its wide use and would not be wasted. When the dead men collected the Huafan stone, countless monsters outside the valley watched quietly without any action. Time goes by bit, when all the Huafan stones are put away, and all the people leap back to Yi Tian's side. Monsters in all directions suddenly started to move. Like mountain torrents and tsunamis, they poured into the valley, as if a wave would devour the valley. A sneer appeared on Yi Tian's lips, and a dark gold seal suddenly appeared in his hand, waiting for the monster to throw it out. The seal of mountains and rivers becomes bigger in the wind and turns into 100 mu area. It smashes down. The monsters covered by the seal of mountains and rivers feel tight and can't move anymore. Almost at the same time, a lot of monks in the spirit realm took actions at the same time, and the shadows in the sky were flying. One magic weapon in the air quickly fell around the valley. Those magic is like as 2 peas, but after the launch, they are getting bigger and bigger. The number of them is just like thick iron plates, falling down in the sky, dozens of magic weapons almost identical, landing and joining each other, end to end, forming a large hollow ring. The seal of mountains and rivers released by Yi Tian just forms the center of the ring, and there is a blank area dozens of feet wide between the ring and the seal of mountains and rivers. Countless monsters are in the middle of this area. When the black circle put the mountain and river seal in the middle, Yi Tian made a gesture beside the mountain and river seal. Hundreds of black shadows appeared out of thin air and flew to the circle. The ring is more than 10 feet wide. It is made of Huafan stone as the main material, supplemented by extremely hard metal materials. It is very heavy and has the magical characteristics of Huafan stone. All monsters within a few feet of the ring are sealed with mana, just like ordinary beasts. The hundreds of shadows were all the puppets of military spirits who had been transformed and engulfed the blood spirits of mayflies, and their combat effectiveness reached the later stage of Yuanying realm. After staying in the magic cave for more than 20 days, Yi Tian, together with Shen Run, refined 1,300 pieces of clothes from the remains of Xianyin stone. All the more than 100 puppets with martial spirits obtained from the bones attached to the storage of the underworld were transformed. So that every puppet has such a treasure clothes. In addition, Yi Tian also refines the seal of mountains and rivers, adds a lot of Xianyang stone, and integrates the refined Huafan stone into it. After refining, the weight of the seal has more than doubled, and the area has reached more than 100 mu, which not only strengthens the gravity field again, but also has the magical effect of transforming stone. Another important thing he did was to refine dozens of black rings with Huafan stone as the main material. This magic weapon can be used alone or in combination with the seal of mountains and rivers. It is a masterpiece of Yi Tian.
Because it's troublesome to always scatter the Huafan stone and then take it back, and there will be more or less loss.
It's better to refine it into a magic weapon. It's convenient and quick to use, and there's no loss. It just costs some refining time.
Due to the limited time, he can achieve this level in more than 20 days outside and more than 40 days inside the magic cave. According to his calculation, it should be enough to use these to deal with monsters. At this time, hundreds of ghost puppets were distributed on the ring, frantically killing the monsters outside the ring who were affected by Huafan stone. It was still a one-sided massacre, and the scene was extremely heroic. There are no monsters on the black ring more than 10 feet wide. Entering the ring, they are not only influenced by the Huafan stone, but also covered by the gravity field. No matter what realm the monsters are, they have to be slaughtered. Within the circle, it seems more civilized. Under the influence of Huafan stone, the monster can't exert any mana, plus the suppression of gravity field, as if it had been cast the body immobilization method, it has no resistance. Many dead men and Yi Tian's disciples, all dressed in treasure clothes, were not affected by the above two factors at all, and sent each monster into the spirit beast ring. These monsters have 3 levels, 4 levels, and some are 5 levels.
They are all captured alive without landing.
And all of this, not only the monsters in the black circle can't resist, but also the monsters outside the circle can only watch. Even after being brutally slaughtered, they dare not even get close to the black circle. More than 20,000 monsters trapped in the black ring were captured in less than half an hour and put into the ring. Fortunately, Yi Tian captured a lot of rings in Songning Kingdom. Otherwise, the number of monsters captured will reach the level where there is no ring available. Looking at the end of this occupation without suspense, Yi Tian tidies up, and the seal of mountains and rivers quickly becomes smaller and flies back to his hands. Outside the circle, the monsters, who had already retreated dozens of feet, saw the scene and retreated one after another. Put away the corpses of those monsters. There are a lot of disciples in our cave. We need to solve the problem of food. With Yi Tian's light drink, many disciples went to the periphery of the black circle to collect a large number of monster corpses. Looking at the demons and beasts still retreating slowly, Yi Tian thought about it. He called those martial spirit puppets and put them in Shumi commandment. He said a few words to his disciples. The next moment, Yi Tian and others suddenly disappeared out of thin air, and no trace was found. When many monsters saw this situation, they were stunned. Over the herd, the terrible dark gold suddenly reappeared and fell down like the sun. Almost at the same time, dozens of black magic weapons also flew down in all directions. Just like the previous version, the black ring once again put the mountain and river seal in the center of the circle. Only slightly different from the last time, this time the black circle is much bigger. The reason why Yi Tian adopts the ring design of decomposition style is that it is convenient to delineate different areas according to different situations. If there is no mountain and river seal in the middle part can be filled with round magic weapon of the same material. If the whole ground is covered with this magic weapon in a flash, it is equivalent to paving Huafan stone of the same area. The way to delineate different ranges is also very simple. It can only be achieved by using different numbers of magic weapons. For example, this time, the number of magic weapons made of Huafan stone is 7 or 8 more than the last time. Once many monsters are trapped this time, Yi Tian quickly releases the ghost puppets, and this time the number is more than before. More than 1,200 puppets of martial spirits were all dressed in their precious clothes and waiting for orders at any time. In order to avoid unnecessary waste of the best fairy jade, Yi Tian didn't send all of them out. Outside, he began to attack the beast. Inside the black circle, Yi Tian's dead men and disciples began to send the beast into the ring like potatoes. This process is so simple. Boom! At this time, outside the black circle, a 6th-level monster suddenly moves. The animal's face was dark, and 2 tusks were born in its mouth. It was tall and bulky. It was more than 10 feet away from the black circle, and it waved to the nearest puppet. With a bang, more than a dozen shadows shot at the puppet. Just as they were approaching the black circle, the speed of those shadows suddenly slowed down. Influenced by the gravity field of Shanhian, the shadow became slower and slower. When it was barely close to the spirit puppet, the puppet took more than 10 shadow in his hand. It turned out to be a thick and hard beast's mane. It looked like a magic weapon in the shape of a gun. Seeing this, the beast growled in his mouth and made continuous movements on his hands, trying to take back those manies, but no matter how he used his mana, he didn't make any progress.
Master, this is a demon pig. Let the old slave do it.
On the mountain in River Seal, Tian, who has never made a move from beginning to end, says to Tian. Tian's look unchanged and said, "You don't have to do it first.
Hide your strength first and try to catch more monsters.
Your main task is to deal with the 7th level monsters.
Don't expose them easily."
I understand. Shenron's fighting spirit slowly converged, and finally returned to the previous state. Outside the black circle, the demon pig failed for the first time. After a few words of discussion with more than a dozen other monsters, many monsters outside began to retreat again. The front team changed into the back team, and the back team changed into the front team. From slowly retreating to running with all his strength, he no longer took Tian's side and all retreated.
So not to fight? Tianpo looked at the progress of catching monsters and said.
This time, more monsters were trapped.
The total number was at least 20,000. It took a little time. However, Tian is not so anxious.
As long as there are monsters, he is not afraid that he can't find them or catch them. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to meet so many monsters in the Holy Spirit realm. Tian wants to take advantage of this opportunity to capture as many monsters as possible. With Huathan Stone, he doesn't worry about taking it away. The earth doesn't know what's going on now, so he can bring back more monsters. Whether it's against the underworld or against the demon world, he can have more power. After a cup of tea, all the monsters finally intruded into the spirit beast ring. After simply cleaning the battlefield, Tian takes back all the martial spirit puppets and releases the magic weapon cave.
Except Shenron, all the others go in.
Put away the magic weapon, Tian also Shenron disappeared out of thin air. At the moment when they disappeared, there was a moment of panic among the beasts who had fled far away, and then all the monsters ran away in panic in all directions. Tian Shenian covered the area of more than 10,000 li, sent out a sneer, and quickly flew away with Shenron. After flying 100 li, they fell into an abyss.
Shenron's mind moved and called out the 6th level golden eye statue.
The two men's bodies flashed, and they jumped on the back of the carving.
The golden eyes of the carving flapped and flew away.